Chapter 674. Yunyang was deep in thought, obviously digesting everything Wu Ying had said. The inside story was not small indeed. The Four Seasons Tower's foundation was still strong, but what was revealed was only the tip of the iceberg. Yunyang had thought of similar things and had experienced it more than once or twice. Although he was still not used to it and did not like it, it was the truth after all. He had no choice but to face it positively. However, the outcome was still acceptable for the time being. It could be said that it was rather gratifying because it could be confirmed that other than Wu Ying who stood before him and the traitorous Venerable Sword, Snow and Frost, there were no more spies from the Four Seasons Tower in Tiantang City or even the entire empire of Yutong. In other words, the internal threat that the Four Seasons Tower had created in Yutong had been completely quelled. Of course, this did not apply to His Highness the Crown Prince and the unfortunate third and fourth princes. That was because these three fellows were actually all involved in this huge conspiracy. At that moment, Yunyang suddenly did not want to keep a whetstone for Bauer anymore. His mind was filled with the thought of killing these three bastards one by one to vent the hatred in his heart. Although Wu Ying was the biggest culprit behind the ambush of the 9 Supremes in Tianxin Mountain, Yunyang's vengeance would not cause much of a ripple with the man's temperament. He would not even feel the thrill of revenge. A man like him who was like a walking corpse was already indifferent to life and death and had no desires. Even if he were to be tortured to death, what could he do? Thinking of this, Yunyang could not help feeling dejected and uncomfortable. Forget it, there were still the 3 princes he could target and Mr. Nian from the Four Seasons Tower. They would not have such a state of mind, would they? There was still a way to settle this score. No matter how many schemes you have devised, even if you have made a wrong move, Bai Zhongliu is still dead. Yunyang said faintly, actually from what I can see, it's impossible for him not to die. Since he has done such a thing, this outcome is only a matter of time. Even if the Four Seasons Tower's higher-ups didn't decide to take his life and take away his vitality, or if he was unwilling to die, would I have let him go? That day I had already decided to kill him. If he hadn't died, I would have killed him. Therefore he had to die no matter what. There can only be one result. A ghostly fire flashed in Wu Ying's eyes as he said eerily, looks like the heavens have indeed blessed Lord Supreme Cloud. He didn't die in your hands after all. It's a blessing for both you and him. Yunyang smiled, a sharp glint flashing across his eyes as he said faintly, that's right. He should feel fortunate that he didn't die in my hands. If he had died in my hands, he wouldn't have died so easily. Wu Ying's words carried a hidden meaning, but he did not understand it. However, Yunyang did not conceal his words at all. It was a direct confrontation between the two armies with swords drawn. Wu Ying turned his head abruptly. His will-o'-the-wisp eyes suddenly turned as sharp as the edge of a blade as they focused on Yunyang's face. He uttered word by word, Lord Supreme Cloud, do you mean to torture and seek revenge? Or perhaps, Lord Supreme Cloud is actually very disappointed that he didn't torture Bai Zhongliu? Yunyang replied calmly, with the intelligence system that you possess, you should know that torturing people like you who commit treason, murder the loyal and ruin the empire is the most enjoyable thing in my life. Ah, what a delightful thing. Wu Ying guffawed, but his voice and expression were as cold as a snowy mountain. Yunyang's gaze slowly turned cold and sharp as he said faintly, Marshal Wu, you've said so much. Do you have anything else to add? Wu Ying sucked in a deep breath as if he was about to explode, but he swallowed it abruptly and said, yes. Yunyang said faintly, then please continue, Marshal Wu. Wu Ying said slowly, I'm not your prisoner. You don't have to use an interrogating tone to talk to me. Yunyang replied coldly, I thought that my words were polite enough. Marshal Wu, do you still find it displeasing to your ears? In spite of this, some words that were left unsaid would only become Marshal Wu's lifelong regret. Otherwise, I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to see Marshal Wu here. Isn't that so? Wu Ying snorted and said, but is this how Lord Supreme Cloud treats those who sincerely provide you with intelligence? Yunyang replied faintly, Marshal Wu's words are rather uncouth. Now that we know each other, whether I ask or not, Marshal Wu will still speak. Do you think that Marshal Wu won't speak if I humiliate Marshal Wu? Wu Ying suddenly guffawed, almost tearing up from his laughter. Lord Supreme Cloud is indeed Lord Supreme Cloud. I'm impressed. Forget it. Since you've said that we know each other, there's no need to say more. I've waited for Lord Supreme Cloud to come tonight mainly to ask for a favor from you, said Wu Ying. Marshal Wu wants to live a little longer, right? Yunyang said. Marshal Wu was indignant that he couldn't save Bai Zhongliu from death in time, so he wanted to live to witness the Four Seasons Tower's downfall on his behalf. With your eyes, You completed Bai Zhongliu's lifelong regret, am I right? Yes, answered Wu Ying. Yun Yang was silent for a moment, feeling his emotions rising and falling. His eyes unconsciously turned towards the dark sky that was already covered by the thick shade of the tree leaves. He did not speak for a long time. After a while he said softly, "The Four Seasons Tower was originally united. No one has ever been able to divide and incite rebellion. What I want to know the most now is why were you all so loyal to the Four Seasons Tower? Other than that, what is the reason for your rebellious thoughts now?" He avoided the topic and went straight to the next topic. Wu Ying was not the least bit surprised. Hearing Yun Yang's question, Wu Ying said, "There's a saying among the Four Seasons Tower's higher-ups, come to the tower if you wish for immortality." "If it's just the word immortality, I'm afraid it's not enough," said Yun Yang indifferently. "Death is inevitable, the Four Seasons Tower has a soul." Wu Ying said, "Even if a person is already dead, the Four Seasons Tower can still give him another chance at life." Yun Yang was quiet. He thought about it and said, "If this is all, it's still not enough. At least it's hard for the pinnacle of this world to be moved." "After the 9th transformation one can live a carefree life," said Wu Ying. Yun Yang was taken aback and asked in surprise, "What do you mean?" "The Four Seasons Tower's 9 revolutions truly means that as long as one has enough merit points, one can go to the Pavilion of 9 Revolutions to choose a godly art, an immortal golden pill, and a pill of heaven's path." Wu Ying said, "As long as you consume the divine pill of heavenly way, you will be able to elevate your divine skill to the realm of initial mastery. The effect is unimaginably great. Once you've stabilized your current realm, or even taken a step further, you can consume the immortal golden pill. With the help of the pill, you will be able to cultivate this cultivation method to the realm of mastery. Once you've completed the cultivation of this cultivation method, even if you can't transcend mortality and enter sainthood, and become a deity, you will still be able to live freely for tens of thousands of years in this world. Your cultivation base will also be invincible except for a select few. What's more, when the time comes, those whose cultivation base is accomplished can even remove all the seals on them. By then, if you wish to live a carefree life, the Four Seasons Tower will provide you with the title of a foreign elder. You can do as you please. Compared to the removal of the restriction, the benefits won't be reduced. If you haven't used the fatal disaster that belongs to you by then, you can still enjoy the authority of the fatal disaster and the soul of the Four Seasons. It's fine even if it's passed on to a third party. All of this is witnessed by heaven's oath. Even the master of the Four Seasons Tower can't go against it." Yun Yang was hit with a sudden realization. "I see. Joining the Four Seasons Tower, not only will one have the support of an invincible force, they'll also have the hope of immortality in front of them, not to mention the guarantee of immortality and the chance to finally leave the Four Seasons Tower and become truly free. Faced with such benefits, even the pinnacle of this world will find it hard to resist. No wonder, no wonder." Yun Yang was deep in thought. He had to admit that the Four Seasons Tower's offer was unparalleled in the entire world. In this world, anyone who had money, power, and ambition would all want to live a long life. They would all want to die but not die. They would all want to be the pinnacle of this world. They would all want to live a carefree life for 10,000 years. These were the 4 major weaknesses of human nature. Moreover, such generous terms were guaranteed. Under heaven's oath, no one dared to go against it. No one could. The Four Seasons Tower is impressive indeed. What a generous offer. Yun Yang sighed and said, "But like Marshal Wu said, such benefits can only be enjoyed by those who have reached the highest realm. How could there be such a loophole in the Four Seasons Tower's arrangement? Don't you know, Lord Supreme Cloud, that not only will no one who is qualified to join the Four Seasons Tower be inferior, no one will even think that they are inferior to others? What others can do they will never think that they can't do it but that they can do it better." Wu Ying sneered. "Until now, there are still so many people who are willing to go through fire and water in the Four Seasons Tower without any second thoughts. Since there are so many benefits, I really can't think of why all of you would have second thoughts. You are like that and so is the deceased Bai Zhongliu. Could there be some unforeseen event that has caused you to have other thoughts?" Yun Yang acutely noticed a key point. Initially, with the heavenly oath as a guarantee, everyone would be at ease. However, after the battle at Tianshan Cliff that day, to be more precise, after Lord Supreme Cloud launched his revenge, we gradually realized that something was amiss. Wu Ying said in a low voice. Yun Yang seemed to have grasped the crux of the matter, but he needed Wu Ying's confirmation. For so many years, it has been too long since anyone dared to set their sights on the Four Seasons path. The last time someone threatened the Four Seasons Tower was Ling Xiaozue. Until now, there is really nothing in this world that can pose a threat to the Four Seasons Tower. However, since Lord Supreme Cloud launched his revenge, many of the Four Seasons Tower's higher-ups, including Supreme Lord Springfrost and the two Venerable Lords, didn't come back to life. It was still fine at the beginning. If it was only 1, 2, or 3 of them, perhaps their chances of survival had long been used up. Naturally, they wouldn't be able to survive. However, as long as one is suspicious, no matter how perfect the disguise is, as long as one is patient, one can eventually find something suspicious. For example, the seal on us. As a result, Lord Supreme Cloud's step-by-step revenge has been flawless and meticulous, but until now no one has been able to find out where Lord Supreme Cloud really is or who his real identity is. However, has Lord Supreme Cloud noticed, or rather suspected, that the exposure of many of the Four Seasons Tower's people is akin to sending themselves to your doorstep to be killed by you? The process of your revenge can be said to be fraught with difficulties, but if one were to look into it, it can hardly be smooth. I don't believe that Lord Supreme Cloud didn't feel this at all. If you really didn't, then the name of the Nine Supremes think tank is undeserving. The Will-O-the-Wisp in Wu Ying's eyes flickered. Yun Yang was struck by a thought and said, I do have this feeling too, but why? Wu Ying said, Sai, this is what I don't understand as well. So many people have died for no reason. The higher-ups have been clamoring to track down Supreme Cloud every day, to get to the bottom of it, but there hasn't been any major action. Why is this so? Is it just to let so many people die in vain after alerting the enemy? Wu Ying said, that's why I can't die. I have to know what all of this is for. I want to see the Four Seasons Tower fall. I want to live a little longer. However, Lord Supreme Cloud has found me. He can't let me go just like that no matter what. If I want to stay here, I have to get Lord Supreme Cloud's approval, Wu Ying said honestly, his tone unperturbed. Yun Yang said quietly, before I came here, the world is vast. You can roam freely, you can go wherever you want and live. Wu Ying said faintly, but I still want to stay in Yutong's Board of Military and continue doing my own thing. Only by staying here can my heart be at peace. Yun Yang lifted his head to look at him. Wu Ying said faintly, I've completed the Four Seasons Tower's mission. The only brother who could touch my heart has died as well. Before I die, during these days where I'm waiting for the results, I only want to live as a citizen of Yutong or an official of Yutong. Therefore, I wish to continue doing things for my country. That's all. If Lord Supreme Cloud doesn't agree, then I can try my best to escape and hide far away in the martial world. I believe that I can escape. He looked at Yun Yang calmly and said, Now, I only owe Lord Supreme Cloud a word. May I ask what you think of it? Yun Yang squinted, looking at the culprit who was speaking confidently in front of him. His state of mind was unprecedentedly conflicted. He could feel the sincerity in every word that Wu Ying was saying. There was not a single lie in his words. Wu Ying was indeed a capable person. It could even be said that no one in the entire Yutong military could match his ability, let alone replace it. What he said about wanting to do things for the country was sincere as well. However, can I not avenge so many of my brothers? Chapter 675. So, Lord Supreme Cloud, tell me, should I keep this lowly life of mine, or should I simply die? Until now Wu Ying's voice was still calm, his gaze cold and indifferent. Seeing that Yun Yang did not answer, he pressed for another question and mumbled to himself, honestly speaking, if I were you, I wouldn't let my enemy live. The future is limitless, so are the variables. A momentary indulgence may be a regret in the future. Only by eliminating the threat now is the best solution. Yun Yang smirked and said, you still want to live deep down. No matter what your purpose is, you still want to live. That's why you're provoking me with words? Wu Ying said indifferently, in this world, who wouldn't want to live when they're faced with certain death? That's right. Yun Yang felt his blood boil as he said sternly, you're right. In this world, who wouldn't want to live when they're faced with certain death? He lowered his voice and growled, my brothers, even when they're faced with the final moments of the battle at Tianshan Cliff, would they not want to live? His words were like a bolt from the blue. Wu Ying stood rooted to the spot like a statue. For the past 7 years, the tens of millions of brave souls who have sacrificed themselves in defending the nation's battlefield. Even if they had no regrets when their blood was shed on the battlefield, would they not want to live? Yun Yang took a step forward and glared fiercely at Wu Ying. Wu Ying stood rooted to the spot. Which one of them isn't loyal to the nation? Which one of them isn't a pillar of the nation? Which one of them isn't a loyal minister and a good general? Which one of them isn't a man with lofty ideals? Which one of them isn't a citizen of Yutong? Which one of them isn't a man who has shed his blood? Are you the only one who has the ability? Which one of these brothers doesn't have the ability? Yun Yang's gaze was as sharp as a knife as he approached step by step, panting heavily. Wu Ying still stood rooted to the spot, allowing Yun Yang's saliva to splatter all over his face as he came closer. If you say to be fair, then be fair. Everybody wants to live. Who doesn't have brothers, comrades, wives, and children? Who doesn't have parents? Who doesn't have a family? Who doesn't have brothers? Yun Yang's words were like knives, but they chose to die in the end, leaving without hesitation. His gaze was like a blood-soaked steel knife that was nailed to Wu Ying's face. You're a man who brings disaster to the country and its people, a traitor who conspires against the country. What right do you have to say that you want to live? Wu Ying's gaze was a little dazed as he murmured, I don't want to live for a long time. I only want to live for a few more years. As long as I can see the Four Seasons Tower fall, that would be enough. Is this an extravagant wish? He seemed to be defending himself as if he was talking to himself. However, his voice grew fainter and fainter. Finally, he closed his eyes and said, When that day comes, I'll naturally confess all my crimes and die as an apology to the world. When the time comes, Supreme Cloud won't even have to do anything. Wu Ying's head will naturally be placed on a plate and presented to Supreme Cloud. As he spoke, he opened his eyes and looked at Yin Yang. The latter's gaze was as cold as a blade. For some reason, Wu Ying dared not face such a gaze. He averted his gaze in disappointment and closed his eyes, remaining motionless for a long time. After some time he said bitterly, If Lord Supreme Cloud can't be appeased, it's only human nature. You can do it now. It's only a life of certain death. It doesn't matter if it's 3 years earlier or 3 years later. This old man has few attachments in this world. It's too pretentious of me to plead for mercy now. His face suddenly contorted as he murmured, What man does, the heavens watch. Even if I can make amends after my sins are done, it'll never be enough. In the end, I want to make amends in these few years. Make amends to my country, my people. Deep down, it's still for my own selfish desire, the desire to make amends. Lord Supreme Cloud is right. I really have no reason to live. Throughout our journey, no matter what our intentions were, no matter what our original intentions were, there were too many good men who died because of us. Bai Zhongliu is already dead, why should I struggle to survive and linger on with my last breath? Even if I have 1,000 reasons and 10,000 reasons, so what? They're just lies to deceive myself. After so many years, I've actually gotten used to lying to myself, thinking that I can really make up for the sins I've committed. I've said all that needs to be said. Please do it. His eyes were still closed as he continued to murmur. His voice grew increasingly bleak as his condition worsened. It was as if he had aged dozens of years in this short span of time. White spots could be seen by the naked eye on the sides of his temples. He stood with his neck straight, unmoving. His eyes were still shut, waiting for the fatal blow to arrive. The journey to the underworld was a righteous one. However, after a long time, there was still no lethal saber wind. Why isn't Lord Supreme Cloud making a move? Wu Ying sighed in melancholy. What are you waiting for? There was no answer. After a while, Wu Ying opened his eyes abruptly and focused his gaze in front of him. Only then did he realize that the space before him was empty. There was no trace of anyone. Lord Supreme Cloud, who was shrouded in a cloud of smoke, had long disappeared. Wu Ying lifted his head hastily, only to see a faint cloud of smoke rising into the sky. It had already gone to where the thick shade of the tree leaves had been. Without the slightest hesitation or pause, it had left leisurely. In the next moment, a gust of wind blew in the sky. Silence returned to the heaven and earth. Wu Ying stood rooted to the spot, stunned. He did not make a sound for a long time. Supreme Cloud had left just like that without saying a word or giving any instructions. He had reprimanded Wu Ying harshly, his murderous intent soaring into the sky. However, he had still chosen to spare Wu Ying's life in the end. It looks like he doesn't want to kill me. Or perhaps, he's agreed to my request. Wu Ying squatted down and fiddled with the ashes on the ground, murmuring, So, we were wrong. It's impossible that he doesn't want to kill me. It's because my talent is still useful to the Empire of Yutong. Now that Yutong is plagued by internal and external threats, he wants me to contribute more. Although he really wants to kill me for revenge, for the country he's guarding, he's willing to put aside his personal grudges for the time being, to face the external forces with sincerity. Lord Supreme Cloud is indeed the best man I've ever seen in my life. Don't worry. When I see the Four Seasons Tower's destruction, I'll go down and reunite with you. In this remaining time, I'll do my best to assist the Empire of Yutong and help you realize your original intention, to settle the Emperor's affairs. If I still can't do it by then, I'll go down to look for you. I believe that a few more years should be enough. What do you think? Wu Ying murmured. If I ask for too much, I'll be asking for too much. He took out incense, candles, and paper money from his spatial ring and continued burning them. I'll burn more now. You can keep them and use them slowly. Don't be thrifty. In the future, as long as I'm free, I'll burn more of them. Burn more while I'm still alive. Don't be too thrifty. Don't spend them all either. Remember to leave some for me. When I go down, I'm afraid there won't be any left. I guess it'll be rare for people like us to have people burning paper money for us. He murmured to himself as if there was someone sitting quietly in front of him, quietly watching him, quietly listening to him. This shall be how I am from now on. This debt of blood must be repaid eventually. This blood debt shall be repaid as much as I can. Yun Yang turned into a floating cloud and left the board of military. Although the matter had been resolved, he still felt indescribably frustrated and could hardly calm down. Chapter 676. Yun Yang walked against the wind. The north wind was strong, but it could not blow away the depression in his heart. Whether my choice today was right or wrong, how can I say it now? Perhaps it is wrong to not be able to settle the debt of gratitude and vengeance, but I hope that my choice will be useful in the grand scheme of things. I am still a citizen of Yutong after all. Personal grudges should be put aside for the time being when the country is in a precarious situation. Brothers, will you blame me? Sai, how can I not know what kind of people you are? It is destined that you will not blame me. But I will blame myself. The right and wrong in this world, the choice of right and wrong, is so difficult. It is not simply a matter of standpoint, nor is it purely a matter of wisdom. It is so helpless, so helpless. Yun Yang heaved a long sigh. He had made his choice and knew that it was the best choice for the current situation. However, the gloom in his heart only grew, unable to be soothed. He had given up on the first goal. Then he might as well finish all the things that had been piling up. The wind howled. Yun Yang quietly came to old Marshal Qiu Jianhan's residence. Old Marshal Qiu Jianhan's residence had been gloomy for a long time. Qiu Jianhan had yet to wake up. Old Mistress Qiu had invited countless famous physicians, and almost all of the palace's royal physicians had moved into the Qiu residence. The palace's countless rare medicinal herbs were almost emptied. His Majesty the Emperor had ordered them to move over first, whether they were needed or not. What if they were not available at the last minute when they were needed, delaying the task? Save old Marshal Qiu at all costs. Even if the Emperor's blood was needed as a medicinal catalyst, come and get it. Whoever could save this old bastard would be promoted 3 ranks and granted the title of Duke, a hereditary title. Even if they were to rebel, they would be granted a death exemption medallion. The Emperor's promise could not be said to be light. The royal physicians were trembling in fear, as if they were treading on thin ice. Each of them had unleashed their trump cards, fighting with all their might. Even so, the royal physicians were still reprimanded by His Majesty the Emperor every single day. No matter what you do, the old marshal won't wake up. What can you do? His Majesty would come for a checkup every 3 days. Every time he came, he would sigh for a long time, cry for a long time, be silent for a long time, and then scold the royal doctors furiously for a long time. He did not want to be angry. He knew that the royal doctors had tried their best, but there was nothing they could do. However, each time he saw Qiu Jianhan looking like a living dead, he felt like killing someone. It was late at night. Old Mistress Qiu was beside old Marshal Qiu's bed, taking good care of him. Looking at Qiu Jianhan, who looked like he was in a deep sleep, the old mistress sighed in melancholy. Old man Qiu, this old woman has been married to you for a lifetime. Why didn't I realize that you were actually so important? My heart was always on edge when you were away on the battlefield, afraid that you wouldn't be able to come back. Now that you're back and I can see you every day, my heart is still on edge. As she spoke, the old lady suddenly laughed. What am I saying? Compared to those soldiers who died on the battlefield, you're much luckier. Even if you really can't wake up, I'll still be content. You're in front of me now. Just as she was mumbling, the soft sound of the wind could be heard. In front of the bed, a black shadow appeared out of thin air. Who are you? What are you here for? The old mistress was someone who had been through a lot. Despite the sudden appearance of the situation, she was not flustered at all, answering with composure. I am Supreme Cloud. The black shadow said, I'm here to save old Marshall from waking up. The old mistress was stunned when she heard the words. Suddenly she felt the world spinning around her, tears flowing uncontrollably from her eyes. The latter half of the night. Qiu Jianhan, who had been in a deep sleep for a long time, slowly woke up. Now that Emmy had returned, Yunyang would no longer treat most of the incurable illnesses in this world seriously. At the very least, he would not be as helpless as he was in the past. In fact, the old marshal had probably exhausted too much of his life force and could not replenish it in time. Yunyang had used his own blood essence to help him, which was equivalent to using the world's top heaven and earth resources to prolong his life. It could already ensure his survival, but the burden on the old marshal's physical body was also too great. It was difficult for him to fully unleash the effects of his precious blood. However, these conditions were insignificant to Emmy. It could be easily solved. Unexpectedly to Yunyang, the old marshal who had regained consciousness was almost devoid of negative emotions. It was as if this deep sleep was nothing but a long dream to him. To be more precise, it was a sweet dream that he did not want to wake up from. In the dream, so many old brothers, so many comrades in arms, who drank and ate with him, who crossed the mountains with him, who advanced with him. Many of them were his old brothers who had sacrificed themselves many years ago. Now they were all gathered together again. It was a rare joy. He still remembered that many of his old brothers would ask the same question: what will happen to my family after I die? This was Qiu Jinhan's proudest moment. He patted his chest and said proudly, with your father here, what can happen to your family? Are you looking down on your father? Don't believe in your father? Do you think that your father didn't take good care of them? Some of his old brothers asked, how is our country? Qiu Jinhan was worried. Still fighting. We can definitely win. We've won so many times, this time won't be an exception. Thus, everyone sighed and cheered together. Some of his old brothers asked, who are the 9 supremes? Qiu Jinhan was proud again. Your father knows. Your father is one of the few who knows. Even old head Lung and old head Fang don't know this secret, but your father does. But how can your father tell you? Many of them curled their lips and jeered. This old man is already dead and he's still keeping it a secret. Who is he keeping it a secret to? Qiu Jianhan only laughed without saying a word. What he had promised, he had to keep it a secret even in death. Death. Could that be the reason? However, it had to be said that the old marshal had been too relaxed, too happy, and too carefree during this period of time. Every day he had nothing to do but drink, chat, and bicker. Today he would play with this. Tomorrow he would play with that. There were hundreds of thousands of brothers here. He would never be lonely at any time. Now, however, when he suddenly woke up and opened his eyes to see that he was actually still alive on his own bed, a surge of reluctance welled up in his heart. F***ck, who was it that was so blind as to pull me back? Your father hasn't had enough fun yet? Then he saw Yunyang. Yunyang, dressed in black, looked like he was shrouded in smoke. He recognized Yunyang as well. There was only one person in this world who could be in such a state. He understood the current situation immediately and his expression darkened as he grumbled unhappily, why can't you wait a little longer? Tell the prophet, I haven't had the time to bid farewell to them. Yunyang was taken aback. He could not wrap his head around it. Farewell? What do you mean? I really don't understand. Chapter 677. Yunyang was dumbfounded. Qiu Jianhan said angrily, what are you looking at? Don't you know that this old man is dreaming of meeting so many old brothers? Do you understand the joy we have together? Now that you've pulled me away with a bayou, this old man hasn't even realized what was going on. Of course, I didn't have the time to say goodbye. Wouldn't I be offended by my old brothers? Yunyang was exasperated. This old man was still as shameless as ever. He was indeed the leader of the capital's top 3 rogues, a true rogue. You've been in a coma for a few months, all right? It's only because I have Emmy's support that I managed to save you. Now that you're awake and alive, not only are you full of gratitude, you're actually blaming me for not telling you in advance. Lin Huang thought to himself. Is this something that can be told in advance? Besides, how do you expect me to tell you in advance? This is the first time I've seen someone behaving like a rogue right after waking up from a coma for a few months. Just as a certain someone was about to reply with a dark expression, the old mistress behind him interjected, why? Did I make a mistake in saving you? You actually want to bid farewell? You're actually still having fun with so many old brothers? Even if you break the heavens, there's no such fallacious logic. Could it be that you're saying that you won't be happy when you're with me? Then go back to your old brothers. Why did you wake up? The old mistress was filled with resentment. Old Marshal Chiu shuddered upon hearing her words. Suddenly he grabbed Yun Yang's hand and shook it, his eyes brimming with tears as he said, "I still have to thank you. Although I have many old brothers over there, what I miss the most is still my home, especially her at home. Thank you, Lord Supreme Cloud." Yun Yang was stunned, speechless for a moment. He then heard the old bastard say with gratitude, "You've saved my life, I'll remember it with my entire being." He then turned his head and said affectionately, "Madam, it's been hard on you all this time. How long have I been in a coma?" The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched, deeply feeling that the word moral integrity was getting further and further away from this old man. This was what it meant to have one's worldview destroyed, one's moral integrity shattered, and one's virtue gone. He heard the old mistress say in a gratified tone, "That's more like it." The old woman approached, her eyes brimming with tears of emotion, but she tried her best to keep them from falling. Her voice trembled as she said, "Thank you, Lord Supreme Cloud. We will never forget your kindness. There's no need for this, there's no need for this. Now that old Marshal has woken up, everything is fine. I shall take my leave now," Yun Yang said as he turned to leave. "Wait." Chiu Jinhan pushed himself up and looked at him with bright eyes. After a while, he asked in a trembling voice, "Then, how was the battle at the Fortress of Resilience?" The old man's eyes were filled with worry. "We won. Han Sanha is dead." Yun Yang left as soon as he finished his words, turning into a cloud of smoke and disappearing quickly. He had fled in a flustered manner. He really couldn't stay any longer. Only Chiu Jinhan's delighted laughter could be heard behind him. The old mistress had been suppressing her emotions for a long time and was finally able to let them out. Shangguan family of generals. When Yun Yang found Shangguan Lingxiu in the middle of the night, she was understandably shocked. What was he trying to do, sneaking into a beauty's room in the middle of the night? Shangguan Lingxiu's neck was flushed. Why are you here? Could this fellow have found out about Lingxi and my promise, and couldn't hold it in anymore? This is too embarrassing, but, if he insists, should I just half-heartedly comply with him? Oh my God, how could I have such a shameless thought? But, what if he gets angry? Yun Yang obviously did not realize the depth of a girl's thoughts as he stared at Shangguan Lingxiu's pretty face curiously. "Why is your face so red?" "I'm here to take care of old Mistress Shangguan. Didn't I promise you that I'll help her nurse her health? My cultivation base has improved since the last time we parted. Should be of some help. You know who I am. How could you come in broad daylight?" Shangguan Lingxiu's thumping heart returned to normal immediately. Her shyness vanished, replaced by a burning rage that made her want to kick this fellow out. She said through gritted teeth, "Lord Supreme Cloud is a thoughtful person indeed. Please follow me." Just as Sister Lingxi had said, this fellow was indeed a fool. Why can't I be as skilled as Sister Lingxi? Why can't I teach him a lesson from head to toe? Forget it, I'd rather not have that power. It would mean that I can't get close to him at the same time. That would be a sin. Alright. Why are you angry all of a sudden? Who's offended you? The fool has offended me. I'm not angry. Shangguan Lingxiu forced a smile through gritted teeth. "I'm so pissed off. It's good that you're not angry. You don't have to bring me over. Just point me in a direction and I'll go there myself. It's inconvenient for you to bring me along. It's already so late, over there. The one with the light on." Shangguan Lingxiu pointed. When Yun Yang turned to look, he heard a loud bang behind him as a door slammed shut. If Yun Yang had come any closer, he could have flattened her straight nose. Lord Supreme Cloud, who loved to look good, would never have been able to accept such an outcome. Lord Supreme Cloud was dumbfounded, grumbling inwardly, "What's going on? What's going on?" Previously at the Yun residence, he was clearly very gentle. I was secretly delighted that under his valiant appearance, there was only gentleness and care, completely different from a certain someone. Why did his temper become so bad after returning home? I really don't understand. Or perhaps I don't understand women. I'm a virgin, I really don't understand women. Yun Yang shook his head and sighed. Women are such strange creatures. He disappeared with a swoosh. The process of treating old Mistress Shangguan was smooth as well, even smoother than waking up old Marshal Chiu. The old mistress had fallen into a state of drowsiness due to her poor physical condition. Yun Yang did not have to spend much effort to make the old mistress fall into a deep slumber. Everything that happened after that went smoothly and easily. As Yun Yang circulated the endless divine art and supplemented it with Emmy's air of vitality, All the blocked meridians had been cleared after only one round in the old mistress meridians. It was slightly more troublesome to hide a portion of the air of vitality in the old mistress body throughout the entire treatment. After all, if it were to be used directly, the old mistress' white hair would turn black. Not only would it become a supernatural event, it would also draw unwanted attention. It would not be good if the air of vitality was hidden within the old mistress body and used slowly. This was the way to cure the root of the problem, and it was more in line with a word that was accepted by ordinary people: miracle. It was a miracle that one's life was on the brink of death, but it was only due to one's luck. At the end of one's life, one's white hair would turn black in the night, and one's life would shine brightly. It was not something that could be attained by any one person. It would definitely attract the covetous eyes of countless others. Dun dun dun. Yun-yang snuck into Shangguan Lingxiu's room once again. Shangguan Lingxiu muttered a few curses under her breath and was ready to sleep. However, just as she took off her clothes and crawled into bed, a certain someone came in again. She was dumbfounded. "Are you done?" Chapter 678. It's done? Yun-yang boasted excitedly. "I'm here to tell you not to worry anymore. You don't have to worry about old mistress's health for at least 10 years. Shangguan Lingxiu pulled the blanket up and covered her head with it as well. She was both embarrassed and embarrassed. Why was this foe here again? This is worse than the last time when I didn't even take off my clothes. But now, in my current state, should I be worried or should I not be worried?" She did not hear a single word that Yin-yang had said. "How did you?" Shangguan Lingxiu covered her entire body but felt that something was amiss. She pulled the blanket away and wrapped it around herself, revealing only her head as she looked at Yin-yang, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You really?" Yin-yang obviously did not expect to see such a scene when they met again. He was dumbfounded and only said after a while, feeling wronged, Why did you go to sleep without waiting for my message?" This was Yun-yang's honest words. He really thought that Shangguan Lingxiu would definitely wait for the results of his treatment here. Who would have thought that she would not wait at all, stripping off her clothes and going to bed stripping, this? Can you blame me for this? Lord Supreme Cloud was indeed wronged. Shangguan Lingxiu felt even more wronged. Gritting her teeth, she growled in a low voice, "What is this? Is there a need to inform me specifically? If I didn't know that Supreme Cloud was you, I would, of course, wait for the results respectfully. Now that I know that you're Supreme Cloud, I'll definitely go to your residence tomorrow. What can we talk about then? Don't you know that I'll be there?" Sigh. Yun-yang stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. It was only then that he felt that he had been too presumptuous in this matter. These days, Shangguan Lingxiu would go to the residence of King Yun every day. It had almost become a routine. Other than Supreme Cloud, Yun-yang was more important to her. She had promised to keep an eye on old mistress's condition, so there was no need to rush. Looking at Shangguan Lingxiu, who was wrapped in the blanket, looking at him in embarrassment, annoyance, embarrassment and helplessness, Yun-yang coughed a few times, feeling speechless. He did not know why, but he blurted out, "Sister Lingxiu, you actually look pretty good in bed." Shangguan Lingxiu's head was covered, her body burning with embarrassment. What kind of nonsense was this bastard spouting? "I'm leaving?" Just as the words left his mouth, Yun-yang immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. With a swoosh, he made his escape. By the time Shangguan Lingxiu plucked up her courage to lift her blanket to settle the score with him, Yun-yang was already gone. Judging by his pace, he might have already reached old Grand Commandant Fang's residence by now. Although he was embarrassed, it was better to finish what he had to do tonight in one go. Since he couldn't get rid of the biggest threat according to the plan, he had to get rid of some other hidden dangers. It was best to get rid of them as soon as possible. However, with this interruption, Wu Ying's suffocation seemed to have dissipated considerably. As Yun-yang sped in the wind, he actually began to daydream. "TSK, I have to say, once Sister Lingxiu takes off her clothes, she's pretty feminine." Fortunately, he didn't say these words on the spot. Otherwise, he would probably be beaten into a pig's head. A blood-red pig's head. The next day, when Ji Lingxi saw Shangguan Lingxiu, she was surprised to see how tired she looked. Her dark circles were especially striking, and she seemed to be in low spirits. Sometimes she would even sit in a daze, looking listless. "Sister Lingxiu, what's wrong?" Ji Lingxi asked curiously. "Didn't you sleep well last night?" "No, I didn't sleep well." Cough cough. Of course she hadn't slept well. She had already fallen asleep, but the person she liked had barged into her room. Her heart had been thumping all the way until this morning. How could she have fallen asleep when she had gone through all sorts of scenarios? Ji Lingxi sat beside Shangguan Lingxiu and said, I should be the one who didn't sleep well. You don't know this, but I haven't had a good night's sleep these past few days. Sister Lingxiu, what can't you figure out? Shangguan Lingxiu could not help but blush as she recalled what had happened last night. She bit her red lips lightly and sighed subconsciously. Idiot. Once the words left her mouth, she felt that something was amiss. How could such words be said so casually? Why did they come out of her mouth so easily? Would everything not be exposed if she said it out loud? As expected, alarm bells rang in Ji Lingxi's heart as she perked up. What is it? Did this idiot offend you? When did it happen? What happened? Tell me in detail. Shangguan Lingxiu blushed as she shook her head. No. No matter how Ji Lingxi asked, Shangguan Lingxiu refused to confess. This was not something that could be discussed in detail. Ji Lingxi grew increasingly suspicious. Biting her red lips, she thought to herself, could it be that this fellow, actually... She stomped her foot angrily even though she already had a plan in mind when she thought about it. With a loud bang the ground shook. Ji Lingxi stood up angrily and kicked Yun Yang's door open. She rubbed her palms together and said, Yun Yang, come, let's learn from each other. We can't miss out on sparring every day. A wail of anguish came from inside. Yun Yang had nothing to say about it. He improved so quickly and grew so much that he was confident that no one would be able to surpass him in the future. He looked down on everyone and looked down on everyone. He climbed from almost no cultivation all the way to Dao Realm Stage 4. Although it wasn't enough to compete with the top experts in the world, there were few who could match him. As for people of the same generation, as for those of the same generation excluding that monster, Ji Lingxi, she did not need to cultivate at all. After sleeping for a few nights, she had already ascended to the pinnacle of Dao Realm. Who was he supposed to reason with? She dragged him along every day calling it a practice session, but in reality she was just punching a sandbag. Moreover, her attacks were neither gentle nor forceful. Every punch that landed on flesh was the lightest result. Occasionally, when his moves were ingenious and successful, he would be half dead from the recoil of the red light. That sour feeling was worse than being beaten up. I can't live like this anymore. Yun Yang sighed in despair. If there was anything worse, it would be today where he was forced to practice with Ji Lingxi continuously. Well, it was more like being beaten up. It was also this day that coincided with the Empire of Yutong's celebration. When His Majesty was about to attend the morning assembly, he suddenly saw two familiar faces. The civil and military officials were overjoyed when they saw them. These two people were the two pillars of the Empire of Yutong's military, Old Marshal Chiu and Old Grand Commandant Fang. These two old men were hale and hearty, walking as if they were flying. Not only did they not look old or weak, they looked as healthy as they were in their prime. Chapter 679. The civil and military officials in the imperial court were dumbfounded. Didn't they say that the two of them were already at the end of their lifespans? One was suffering for his life, and the other was already unconscious. How could they both appear here? Moreover, they were in high spirits. This was definitely not the final radiance of the setting sun. Even the so-called final radiance of the setting sun wouldn't have this kind of energy, chi, and spirit, alright. The mysteriousness of the incident had taken everyone by surprise, exclaiming that a miracle had happened. As the crowd exclaimed in awe, they wanted to ask about the reason. This was a living dead person. The effect of reviving the dead was astounding. It was not a coincidence that two people had been saved in one go. It must have been the help of an expert. How could they be satisfied if they did not ask about it? Qiu Jianhan felt that he could not answer and was about to come up with some excuse to cover it up, but Old Grand Commandant Fang spoke first. Old Grand Commandant Fang continued. This old official is surprised as well. Old Grand Commandant Fang looked perplexed. Recently my spirit has been deteriorating. My days and nights are drowsy, like I'm waking up from a dream. I feel that I don't have much time left. Last night was the same as usual, but somehow I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was surprised to find that my body was as light as a youth. I felt uncomfortable all over. Your Majesty, the officials, and Brother Nian are surprised by my condition, but this old man doesn't understand what has happened either. I didn't want to attend the imperial court today, but I'm filled with doubts about my condition. I wanted to ask if anyone knows what's going on. Qiu Jianhan continued smoothly, this old official's condition is similar, but I'm even more perplexed than Old Man Fang. Old Man Fang is at most drowsy throughout the day and night, but this old man has been living dead all this time. Old Man Fang doesn't know the reason, of course I'm even more perplexed. All in all, it's strange. It's fine if you want to ask this old man, but you have to ask old Grand Commandant Fong first. What does this old man know as a living dead? Go ask the living. A certain old gangster had even scratched his head in bewilderment, looking perplexed. His acting skills and phrasing were superb. He was indeed the leader of Yutong's 3 rogues. His Majesty could see that old Grand Commandant Fong really did not understand. However, when he saw Qiu Jianhan scratching his head innocently, His Majesty felt his heart sink. The joy he felt when he saw that the old man had woken up safely almost vanished into thin air and turned into a heart attack. His only thought was to kick this old hooligan who was too good at acting, who was sighing and scratching his head with his fingers, out of the main hall. He had a blank expression on his face, but in reality he knew better than anyone else. Since you don't know, can you not speak in such an arrogant tone? Oh, you don't know either. I'll be a fool to believe you. When the morning assembly ended, His Majesty the Emperor kept Qiu Jianhan to interrogate him. Qiu Jianhan was still bewildered. I really don't know, Your Majesty. You should ask old Grand Commandant Fong about this. This old official is still very muddle-headed until now. I probably had a dream when I was sleepy. I dreamed of that and that and that and that. Your Majesty, take a guess. Those old things are living a good life now. Damn, they can live so well even as ghosts. I'm so envious. Tisk. Did someone save me? Did someone really save me? If *ck I was actually saved? Then who is my savior? Since Your Majesty has said so, you must know. You must tell me. The grace of saving my life should be repaid with gushes of spring. I must repay the favor. Facing such an old hooligan, His Majesty got nothing after questioning him for an hour. Instead, he listened to the old hooligan's story of him wandering the underworld for half a day. In the end, the person asking the questions gradually became the one being interrogated. In the end, His Majesty could not take it anymore. He pointed a finger at the door and said, "Scram! This official shall take his leave." The old hooligan was gone in a flash. He had run away at top speed. Could it be that a person who has died once would be twice as thick-skinned? His Majesty was unsure of the question. He fumed for a long time with a dark expression before he finally scolded, "Old man, do you really think I can't guess who it is if you don't tell me?" The entire Shangguan clan was also very happy. When the great ancestor woke up in the morning, he suddenly felt a lot more energetic. After trying it out a few times, he could actually walk as if he was flying. Surprise. He then realized that many of the discomfort and old ailments in his body seemed to be gone. Surprise. He then realized that even the cultivation base that he could not use seemed to have recovered. Even more surprise. His back was straightened, his ears were no longer deaf, his vision was not blurry, his legs were healed. Finally, he tried leaping several feet. Seeing that old mistress had recovered so much, the entire Shangguan family of generals cheered thunderously, elated and delighted. God bless the family of generals. Old mistress took one last look before asking, "Where's Lingxiu?" "She's gone to the residence of Yun. Should we call her back?" Old mistress pondered for a moment before saying, "There's no need. This girl, she's been through a lot all these years." She walked slowly to the door of the ancestral hall and looked at the memorial tablets inside, murmuring, "After a few more days, if this old one's body is still as good as it is today, then this old one will still be the one to support the family of generals. When the time comes, this old one will invite Yun Xiaoyao over and settle the marriage between Lingxiu and Yun Yang." All the women of the Shangguan family were overjoyed. Everyone had witnessed Shangguan Lingxiu's efforts all these years. Who would not be heartbroken? A beauty in her prime could only stay at home all her life because of the burden of her family. Now she could see hope. The bitterness was over and the sweetness was beginning. God bless us. Shangguan Lingxiu's mother knelt before the ancestral tablet and kowtowed respectfully. "Ancestors, bless us. Bless my Xiu, to be happy and to find someone to rely on." It was night time. Yun Yang's miserable days had finally come to an end. It was not that Ji Lingxi could not move him or that she was being kind. It was because something that Yun Yang had planned for a long time had finally happened. In a restaurant that was neither high nor low class, the 4 noble young masters of spring, summer, autumn, and winter were drinking with their guards in high spirits. There were a few tables nearby that were filled with people of the martial world. Seeing these fellows talking so arrogantly, they curled their lips discreetly, but no one was there to dampen their spirits. First, the 4 popinjays were not ordinary young masters of noble families from their attire alone. Furthermore, they had many guards by their side. They did not look like they were to be trifled with. This was only secondary. The most important thing was that although the four great debauches still had the title of debauchee, their strength was no longer ordinary. Any one of them had the extraordinary strength of a Jianghu expert. How could ordinary Jianghu people dare to provoke them? Just as the few of them were in high spirits, someone suddenly fell into the restaurant. He landed in front of Dong Qianling. Chapter 680. The person who had fallen in was an old man who was covered in wounds. His body was drenched in blood and flesh. He picked himself up immediately after falling in and hugged Dong Qianling's thigh, crying out, "Young master, save me." Dong Qianling hollered, "Don't touch me. I've just changed my clothes." 3 to 4 silhouettes came from afar. "Where do you think you're going?" The old man let out a strange cry and quickly got up again, leaping out of the window and disappearing in the blink of an eye. His movement skill was extraordinary. The pursuers were still in hot pursuit, leaping out of the window one after another. Dong Qianling stood up and cursed, "F***ck. This young master is untainted by the mortal world, but the mortal world will taint me. I've only come out for a drink and I've actually been splashed with blood. This is simply..." As he spoke, he tidied himself up, growing increasingly frustrated. "That old bastard, why did he smear my blood all over me? How can I drink now? This young master is a particular person. What's this?" As he spoke, he took out a tattered item from his clothes. It seemed to be some kind of fur. "F***ck, what's this?" Dong Qianling lifted the piece of fur up and observed it carefully. "What the F***ck is this smell on it? It's been chopped into pieces. F***ck, why are there 2 pieces? Let me see. F***ck, are these 2 pieces actually connected? There seems to be something on it. What is this? Strange." As he said so, Chun Wanfeng and the rest perked up and stepped forward. "What is it? What is it? Say, what is it?" The guards of the 4 noble young masters knew that something was amiss, but they could not stop him in time. Too many people had seen Dong Qianling examining the rag in the air. Everyone paled when they saw it happen. "My young master, can you have some martial world experience? It's obvious that the old man who's being hunted knows that he can't escape, so he stuffed it into your arms. It's fine that you left just like that. Why did you take it out? For an expert to be hunted down like this, how could the things he gave him be ordinary? You'll get yourself into big trouble. Young master, keep it quickly." One of the guards said in a low voice, "This thing, what's wrong with that? Look at all of you." Dong Qianling guffawed. "By the looks of it, it's only 1 or 2 pieces of treasure map at most, and it's not even complete, only 2 pieces, just a part of it. With this young master's current status, cultivation and strength, would an ordinary treasure map even enter my eyes? This young master doesn't have anything else but money, ability, and ability." The other 3 young masters roared with laughter. They were extremely savage. "Well said. We have plenty of money and great abilities. We are all experts." With the current strength of the 4 great hedonists, this wasn't an exaggeration. It was the truth. A few of the guards shook their heads and stomped their feet, their faces full of anxiety. "Young master, although your cultivation has soared, your eyesight hasn't improved at all. This is clearly a sign of great trouble." He leaned closer and said, "If it were an ordinary treasure map, how could there be so many experts just now trying to steal it? Those people just now were all Dao realm cultivators. Any one of them was a rare sight in the Jianghu, and was an overlord-level existence." Dong Qianling was taken aback. "What did you say? You're saying, this thing, is actually a rare treasure? The kind that will cause great trouble?" The eyes of the martial world people at the other tables had already lit up upon hearing the commotion, each of them perking up their ears to listen. "Yes, young master, this matter must not be taken lightly." The guard was so anxious that he was starting to spout nonsense. Dong Qianling's eyes darted around as he said, "This matter is easy to deal with. That old bastard wants to frame your father? Then I'll let this old fellow go for wool and lose the rice he used to lure the chicken. He'll lose everything and get nothing. Bring me the fire." Dong Qianling was gleeful. "Let's burn it directly. Let's see who's the one who feels the pain in the end. How dare you plot against me? You're wrong." It had to be said that Dong Qianling's plan was somewhat reasonable. "I don't know what it is, but I'll burn it. What can you do to me if I burn it in front of everyone's eyes?" Completely ignoring the dissuasion, Dong Qianling went ahead with his plan. Without a second word, he lit the fire and the fire blazed brightly. Dong Qianling used his knife to pick up the 2 pieces of the treasure map and placed them into the fire without hesitation. Then it burned for half a day. "What kind of fur is this?" Dong Qianling was amazed. It's King not afraid of fire. It's quite rare. The guards of the four noble families had just felt a little better, but now their expressions turned even uglier. No matter how rare a treasure map was, it would only be worthy if one had sufficient ability. Without sufficient ability, it would only be the root of trouble. While it was a pity to burn it down, it had to be said that it was the best way to solve the problem in front of everyone. But, a fur that was not afraid of fire. What kind of fur was that? Everyone seemed to have only heard of one thing, a legend. In a distant legend, only the fur of various divine beasts was not afraid of fire. Dragon skin, Chilan skin and so on, could not be destroyed by fire. However, what kind of treasure map would be made using the fur of divine beast? The leader of the guards was so anxious that his heart almost leaped out of his throat. Young master, let's go quickly. Dong Qianling also realized that he had gotten himself into big trouble and said, it's all right. I have the treasured saber that boss gave me. It's more important to get rid of this threat now. If we really bring it back, we'll only bring more trouble to ourselves. As he spoke, he placed it on the table and drew his saber. It had to be said that experience was indeed useful. Although Dong Qianling's response was simple and brutal, it was still the best way to deal with the current situation. Of course, the premise was that he could really use his saber to deal with the two pieces of fur. Plop, plop, plop. Dong Qianling used all his strength to hack and slash more than 300 times. However, when he picked it up to take a look, there was not even a single mark left on it. F***ck, it's actually a treasure map fragment that's impervious to weapons and water and fire. Everyone was dumbfounded. What kind of great secret did it contain that such a precious piece of fur was actually needed to be recorded? At this moment, the four noble young masters' eyes lit up. For such a good item, even if it was a little trouble, it seemed to be worth it. Suddenly, a long laugh came from the side. Why go through so much trouble? Since young master doesn't want this trouble, just give it to me. A black shadow suddenly dashed over like lightning, grabbing the two pieces of the treasure map and retreating in a flash while laughing. How dare you? You're courting death. Put it down. In an instant, the four noble young masters and the 16 guards struck together, causing a storm to break out. Chapter 681. Countless gusts of wind intertwined. The man laughed and took the blow head-on, charging out like a whirlwind. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, he jumped out of the window hastily. His reflexes were swift and his cultivation base was impressive. After all, he had only spat out a mouthful of blood when he faced the combined forces of the four noble young masters and 20 others. Unexpectedly, just as the robber jumped out of the restaurant, he saw a flash of saber light and an eerie voice said, "Give it to you? Are you even worthy?" Faced with the sudden saber light, the man who had just charged out did not even have time to scream before his head was chopped off. Then a ghostly silhouette flashed and was already hundreds of feet away. The speed of his movement was rare. Then a few people leaped into the air, saber light and sword energy crisscrossing. Put down the treasure. In the blink of an eye, everyone on the scene had disappeared, already far away. Whistling sounds could be heard from afar as various signals and rockets were fired into the sky. Bam bam bam. Dong Qianling held his hands in a daze, dumbstruck. His face was pale and his gaze dull. After a long time, he said with a tearful face, "What should I do? I seem to have gotten myself into big trouble." Everyone sighed in unison. Recalling how this child had taken the only treasure map of a mythical beast hide in the world, raised it up, set it on fire, and slashed it with a saber. Although they knew that it was the right thing to do, they could not help cursing inwardly, F***ck your mother, you don't do this even if you want to die. The treasure is already in your arms, but you still dare to show it off. Your father has never seen such an idiot in my life. On the way back, the four noble young masters were dejected while the 16 guards were like walking corpses. No matter what, the news of the treasure map of 2 mythical beast hides in Tiantang City spread like it had grown wings, spreading throughout the martial world in a short amount of time. It was also on that night that Yun Yang found out about it. Then Yun Xiaoyao issued an order. Seal off Tiantang City. From now on, only entry is allowed. This decision was absolutely correct. You can bring the treasure map out, but don't stay in Tiantang City to wreak havoc. At the same time, reinforce the security. Prepare for war. A series of orders were issued like thunder and lightning. However, everyone knew that another catastrophe had arrived. The epicenter was still Tiantang City, the capital of Yutong. Boss, it's done. Dong Qianling was no longer as anxious as he had been in the restaurant earlier. He was beaming with joy. Don't you worry about our work. It's flawless. Yin Yang rolled his eyes. Do I need you to tell me that? The entire country knew about it. I knew it. Moreover, this is just a script. Even the details of the lines are designed by me. If you make any more mistakes, it's your problem, okay? What's there to be proud of? The first step is complete. Begin the second step immediately. Act according to the established plan. On the second day, Dong Tianling invited his guests to a different restaurant. This restaurant might not be considered the most high class in Tiantang City, but it was definitely the restaurant with the largest floor space. Spring Flower and Autumn Moon House. Those who attended the meeting today were almost all of Tiantang City's younger generation. There were few who were left out. Other than the four noble young masters, there was also the great Crown Prince Yun, who was seated at the head of the table. Below him were the two young princes of the royal family, as well as young Master Ma, young Master Qian, young Master Wang, young Master Niu, who had not appeared for a long time, as well as certain young masters who were making their debut. All in all, there were 15 to 16 people seated at each of the 10 large tables. The food was filled to the brim. Dong Tianling sat at the head of the table, looking like he had lost his parents. The guards of the major clans had long since guarded every window, door, roof, and even every blind spot. To put it nicely, it was a matter of great importance, so it must be kept a secret. However, the group of guards looked at each other in dismay. They had the urge to curse out loud in their hearts. *CK your grandpa, secrecy? You've invited 200 people and there are even more guards around. What secrecy is there to talk about? Secrecy my *. Only when one person knows about it can it be considered a secret. If there were 2 people who knew about it, the possibility of a secret being leaked would soar to 80%. If there were 3 people who knew about it, it would basically mean that the whole world knew about it. Now that there were more than 300 people, how could they still think of keeping it a secret? Aha, what's going on here today? One of the young masters was anxious. Just as the crowd sat down, he took the lead and asked, "What's going on? You've called all the brothers here. Is there something big going on?" If it were the 4 noble young masters of the past, they would have had some reputation, but it would have been infamy and infamy. The prodigal sons of the martial world's aristocratic families could not even be mentioned in public. They would not even enter the eyes of Yutong's noble young masters. They were on 2 different levels, 2 different worlds. However, the 4 noble young masters of today not only had the meritorious deeds of bravely going to the Fortress of Resilience and bathed in blood on the battlefield, they also possessed formidable abilities that allowed them to look down on the so-called 10th perfection legendary experts. Their reputation was no longer what it used to be. Otherwise, Dong Tianling's invitation might not have been given face. Silence. Someone beside him reminded him, "What are you so anxious about? Can't you see that young Master Yun is here too? He hasn't even spoken yet. Who do you think you are?" Cough cough. Yin Yang coughed. It was this cough that silenced the crowd immediately. Everyone straightened their backs and looked at Yin Yang. This was the power of a person's reputation. Even though there were 2 royal princes sitting here, no one dared to compare themselves to this young Master Yun. Young Master Yun's reputation was truly renowned throughout the world, shaking the nations of Tianxian. Did they not see how the 3rd prince was severely injured by young Master Yun and almost turned into an idiot? Did His Majesty not say anything? Moreover, the Crown Prince did not seem to gain any advantage from young Master Yun either. In Tiantang City, not listening to young Master Yun meant that one was an idiot, a fool, and a wise man would not do so. There are 2 main reasons for gathering everyone here today. One of them is Dong Tianling's personal matter, young Master Dong Tianling. He needs everyone's help to lend a helping hand. This matter of his is really an undeserved calamity. It's just that he's a little dumb, a little silly, and a little dumb. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with him. Yun Yang sighed and looked at Dong Tianling with disappointment. Why don't you say it yourself? Tell me, how can you always be related to such rare matters? Dong Tianling stood up with a long face, his face a little green, looking like he was about to cry at any time. Dear brothers, the young masters who claimed to be knowledgeable felt chills running down their spines upon hearing his words. Their gazes were strange as goosebumps rose all over their bodies. *CK. What was he trying to do? Why did he even use the word dear? Just say it, what was he trying to do? I only found out after I went back that the Dragon Hide treasure map was said to have originated from one of the few immortals who had appeared in our continent many years ago. That immortal was known as the 17th Master of the Abyss. 17th Master of the Abyss. Hiss, 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 hiss. Gasps could be heard. Everyone's expression suddenly turned solemn. So the owner of the Dragonhide treasure map was actually the 17th Master of the Abyss? In that case, it wouldn't be strange to use the dragon skin to cover the entire treasure map. This was a legendary figure that everyone looked up to. Compared to the 17th Master of the Abyss, the so-called number 1 expert, number 1 swordsman, and so on were not even worth mentioning. After the Age of Gods, it was a unique period where civilization changed and the continent was overturned. It was the first time the continent had appeared and humans were born. Countless traces of the earlier era had been overturned by the sea and buried in this land. On a certain month and year, a person suddenly appeared out of nowhere and called himself the 17th Master of the Abyss. This was the beginning of his legend. The so-called beginning of a legend was probably referring to this 17th Master of the Abyss. No one knew where he came from, but ever since he came out he was known as the 17th. There was a record of someone asking him, "Why are you called the 17th?" The 17th Master said, "Before me, there were 16 other seniors who came out from our side. All of them were already listed as immortals and had become great figures like the rulers of heaven and earth. As a junior who ranks 17th, my greatest wish in this life is to catch up to the footsteps of my predecessors. How would I dare to take up a senior's title?" The most important information revealed by this sentence was that there were 16 others before the 17th Master, such as the 1st Master of the Abyss, the 11th Master of the Abyss, and so on. These young masters had all ascended to the heavens without exception, achieving immortality. Once this fact was revealed, the entire continent was shaken several times over. Of course, the premise of this fact was that the 17th Master of the Abyss was invincible from the moment he appeared. He traversed the entire Tianshan continent without a rival. Later on, he traveled to the boundless sea, the snowy mountains, and the boundless forest. All of them were smooth sailing and he could do as he pleased. Another result of his freedom was that countless rare and exotic beasts died under his hands. It seemed that there were many powerful species that were not able to reproduce, and thus no longer existed in the world. In the end, there was really no one who could stand up to him. A certain young master let out a long sigh and said, "Among the heroes of the world, there is actually no one who can stand up to me. Life is so lonely and miserable. Forget it, I should find another place to train myself." However, the Tianshan continent is full of heroes. How can it be devoid of talents? 17th, I have slain a dragon today and specially made a Dragonhide treasure map to be scattered under the heavens. If anyone is fated to obtain it, they can inherit my legacy. I hope that after many years, we can meet again in the 9 heavens. After saying that, he grabbed a dragon from the boundless ocean and slashed it with his sword. He took a piece of dragon skin from its neck and drew a map. After thinking for a while, he tore it into 6 pieces and blew at them to scatter them in all directions of mystic sky. After doing all this, the 17th Master of the Abyss said, "First young master and the other seniors, 17th is coming." In a flash he leaped into the clouds. At this time, thunder and lightning roared and the sky darkened. Vaguely, a path to the heavens could be seen flashing in the sky. As the 17th Master leaped up, the path to the heavens disappeared. From then on, the 17th Master was no longer seen in the world. The above was the truth. No matter how long the history, this was still a legacy that could not be ignored. However, how could such a legendary figure not arouse wild and fanciful thoughts? How could the item of inheritance not be coveted and coveted by others? However, that dragon skin treasure map had never been seen for so many years. Actually, it was understandable that anyone who obtained a piece of it would definitely treasure it in secret and absolutely be unwilling to reveal any information about it to others. It had been hundreds of thousands of years since this ancient legend. In all these years, the 6 pieces of the Dragonhide treasure map had never appeared in the world. Moreover, because there were no more unparalleled experts like the 17th Master, it gradually became a legend that only existed in legends. By now, almost everyone had forgotten about it. Even if there was the shock of yesterday, not many people would connect it to the real thing. The so-called skin of a mythical beast, or rather, the skin of a dragon, only existed in legends. However, in today's world, who had actually seen a dragon? Or even other divine beasts? But now, because of one person, a great idiot, he actually cut it with a knife and burned it in front of everyone's eyes, proving that there really was a certain kind of skin in this world that was impervious to weapons and fire. It was definitely a good thing. This was, without a doubt, a great idiot. This person had obtained 2 pieces of the treasure map and was being chased by people with ulterior motives. He had stuffed it into his arms to divert attention, but it was only a temporary measure. He had thought that with his experience and vision he would definitely not be able to see through it. He had planned to retrieve it secretly in the future. However, this great idiot had revealed it to the public in order to vent his anger due to his usual foppish behavior. What was even more coincidental was that this gigantic idiot had quite a bit of cultivation base, insight, and wealth. First, he disdainfully wanted to destroy the treasure map to take revenge on the person who had resorted to expedient measures. Then he grew fearful of the treasure map's impenetrable material and directly used a E-grade divine weapon to forcefully destroy it. However, his countermeasure was equivalent to repeatedly showing that this treasure map was the legendary Dragonhide treasure map. In the end, it had inevitably been snatched away by someone who coveted it. This process was like someone had stuffed a check that could be cashed in half a world's worth of wealth into your arms. Then you took it out in public to check if it was real. After confirming that it was real, it was then snatched away by someone else. Hearing Dong Qianling mention the 17th Master of the Abyss, everyone recalled it at once. At once, the gazes they gave Dong Qianling were extremely complicated. Your father has never admired an idiot in this life, but your father must admire this idiot in front of me. Chapter 683. Brothers, I'm also being wronged. How am I supposed to explain this? Dong Qianling wept and said, how would I know it was this treasure? At that time that old bastard leaned on me and my whole body was covered in blood. I was drinking at that time, how could I still drink? It was disgusting, you guys don't know. Everyone looked askance at him. Drinking? Disgusting? Can your wine be compared to the Dragonhide treasure map? Even if it disgusts you to death, you should have guarded the treasure without fear. Besides, who would have thought that these two pieces of leather would be treasures? There's clearly a moldy smell on them, it's the rotting stench of an animal's carcass. Dong Qianling continued weeping. Think about it, put yourself in my shoes and think about it. If I didn't throw it out, could I have brought it home? It's so dirty. Everyone looked askance at him. He had to bring it home. He had to bring it home. Dirty? If it were me, I'd bring it home even if it was 10,000 times dirtier. This wastrel. What an uncountable wastrel, what a short-sighted fool. Why was it this fellow who was drinking and not me? Obviously, the temptation of wealth had caused everyone's rationality to go out of control. Rationality had never had a high chance of winning when faced with such a huge temptation. Within the boundaries of Tiantang City, us brothers are naturally the most powerful. Therefore, Dong Qianling would like to shamelessly ask for everyone's help. Dong Qianling said in anguish, help me find this thing back. Everyone sucked in a long breath, obviously not expecting this to be Dong Qianling's request. As they listened to Dong Qianling's complaints, their first thought was that this fellow was acting pitiful, probably to let everyone here be his witness to prove that the treasure was no longer with him. He was just playing it safe and playing it safe. Who would have thought that this fellow's request for help was actually this? How could you even open your mouth? Find it back? Of course it must be found back. But find it for you? Ha! I'm in a mess right now. I really don't have any better ideas. I've provoked such a big trouble, and I still have to face the clan's heavy punishment. The only ones I can count on are the brothers here. Everyone sneered in their hearts. This idiot has done the stupidest thing in the world again. It's fine if you secretly look for it yourself, there's always a chance. But you actually told this big secret to so many people in your panic. It's destined that you'll never be able to find it again. But it's not like I can't find it. As long as I find it, it's mine. That hidden treasure is mine. How can I miss such a great opportunity? Dong Qianling bowed deeply. Brothers, please help me. Dong Qianling is eternally grateful. From now on, if there's anything you need, I'll do it even if I have to risk my life. He raised his glass with a sincere expression. Everyone who has come here today has given me face. They are my brothers who have gone through life and death with me. Let us raise our glasses. May our friendship last forever. Even if the seas run dry and the rocks decay, our friendship will never change. All the popinjays raised their glasses at the same time. Since Brother Dong has said so, this little brother and the others will naturally not refuse. Even if we have to go through a mountain of blades or a sea of fire, we'll still go for Brother Dong. Everyone do your best. We must find it. This friendship will never change even if the seas run dry and the rocks decay. That's right. We must find it and help Brother Dong through this difficult time. Come, come, come. Let's drink together. Let's drink together. Friendship lasts forever. Friendship lasts forever. Our friendship will never be forgotten in this lifetime. Everyone raised their glasses. When it came to the words, friendship will last forever, affection will never be forgotten in this life, everyone had a very absurd feeling in their hearts as if they had been driven to a dead end. UF asterisk king wish for us to be with you forever with just a glass of wine? Our friendship will never be forgotten in this lifetime? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Thank you, dear brothers, for your kindness. Dong Chenling was moved to tears. Everyone must eat, drink, and play to your heart's content today. Everything is on me. Righteous. Let's drink. Let's not go home until we're drunk. Come, come, come. Let's go look for the treasure map after this glass of wine. The earlier we find it, the earlier we can save Brother Dong from this disaster. We must find it, no matter what. Everyone was drinking and shouting their slogans passionately while calculating in their hearts. If I find these 2 pieces of treasure map, will I cultivate martial arts? Or, perhaps, This was a huge temptation. Thinking about it, everyone was eager to put their thoughts into action. They were restless, as if there were maggots under their butts. Let me go home and set it up quickly. This was the dragon hide treasure map that recorded the 17th Master of the Abyss's legacy. Something terrible could happen if we were a step too late. Yun Yang stood up at this moment. Now that we're done with young Master Dong, let me talk about something else. Young Master Yun, please speak. We're all ears and listening to your teachings. Actually, about this matter. Marshal Tai Jing came to me for a drink a few days ago and asked me to think of a solution. Yun Yang went straight to the point. Now that the war has ended, there are many things waiting to be done, especially when the Board of Military is running out of money and food. There are so many warriors who have died, yet their pensions aren't in place. The faces of all the young masters in the room instantly turned pale. Brother, don't go on. We know what you mean when you say this. You want to borrow money again? Yes, we're all sensible people. We're all brothers, so I'd like to take this opportunity to collect some donations from all of you. Yun Yang smiled and said, I know that other than being brothers, we're all sensible people and rich people. We're not rich people, we're very poor, and collecting donations? It's not about borrowing money. As one of the sensible people, I'll reveal an unconfirmed piece of information to all of you. If there's really no money, Marshal Tai might very well take extreme measures. Yin Yang smiled. For example, confiscating property and filling the national treasury. Everyone froze. Could it be done? Of course, this is only an extreme measure when there's no other choice. It's impossible at this stage. Yun Yang smiled warmly. Because of this young master has already promised Marshal Tai that each of us will fork out 10 million silver taels. And then everything will be fine. These are the specially designated families. The names on the list are all given 10 million silver taels. Everyone here is a sensible person. You won't make a choice that you don't understand, will you? 10 million silver taels. Why don't you just go and die? And what's with the list and the names on the list? F***CK. It must be someone from above who's nailed their heads to death. There's no room for negotiation. If you really don't have enough money, I can help to pass the message to Marshal Tai. I believe Marshal Tai will be understanding. At most, he'll just pay a visit. Pay a visit? F***CK your greetings? I can't let that fellow pay a visit no matter what. Other than the dozens of families on the list that I have in my hand, each of you has 10 million silver taels, the rest of you only have about 2 million silver taels. Cough, I'm troubled by this as well. I know that all of you aren't rich and it's not easy, but 2 million silver taels should be able to be taken out with some effort, isn't it? Chapter 684. Squeeze a little? F***CK you're squeezing. How are we supposed to squeeze? You've almost taken half of our lives away just like that. What is this? In spite of this, no one dared to refute or question him. They did not even dare show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction on their faces. Who was this Yun Yang in front of them? This was young Master Yun, the young prince of the residence of King Yun. Who was behind the residence of King Yun? Yun Xiaoyao, King Xiaoyao. Would young Master Yun dare to do this if King Xiaoyao had not nodded? Of course he had nodded. Who was behind King Xiaoyao? Without a doubt, it could only be the current emperor. How could King Xiaoyao do this if His Majesty did not nod his head for such an important matter? Extortion in front of everyone. It was conceivable that he had nodded his head. As for why Yun Yang insisted that he had discussed it with Marshal Tai, it was because it was inconvenient for King Xiaoyao and His Majesty to show up. How bad would it sound if they did? Those two were still rather prideful. It could be said that it was appropriate for Marshal Tai to take the lead in this matter, and it was even more appropriate for Yun Yang to show up. F***CK who would dare to be dissatisfied? Putting aside the malice from the two highest authorities in the Empire of Yutang, Yun Yang himself might not even be able to wait for the imperial court's ruling or for Marshal Tai Zheng to pick a quarrel. His head would be gone just like that in the middle of the night. What? Young Master Yun did it? Do you have proof? Even if you had proof, the other party could make it disappear in a blink of an eye. He might even ask you later, do you have any more proof? This kind of thing was completely possible. It was conceivable. It would be a meaningless death. What? You said that Yun Yang coming out to collect money was His Majesty's order? Do you have proof? If you don't have proof, you're slandering, you're framing, you're disrespecting the emperor, you're lawless, you're deceiving the emperor, you're plotting a rebellion. If that's the case, it won't be just you, your entire family will be gone. Do you have proof? Show it to me? It's death whether I show it or not. Everyone's mind was filled with billions of horses, alpacas, and grass mud horses galloping back and forth in an endless stream. For a moment they were all stunned. A few well-known wealthy families even wanted to cry, but they had no tears. It was one thing for other families to fork out 10 million, but if one's own family could only fork out 10 million, then they could only wait for death. Although he didn't specifically mention names, but was there a need for such a thing? All right. I'll say it again. Everyone here is smart. Let's start the fundraising now. Well, the theme this time is to donate money, not to borrow money. Yun Yang chuckled. Therefore, everyone has to weigh how much you're willing to contribute. You must have a count in your heart. I won't return the money. Absolute silence. This young master doesn't have much income, so I'd rather spend the money I have. However, the country is in danger, so of course, every man has his responsibility. This young brother has brought out all of his assets this time, 20 million taels. Yun Yang set an example and made a generous offer. Since Big Brother has said so, this young brother has always fought alongside many of Yutong's men against the enemy, even though I'm not from Yutong. I still remember the bloodbath at the Fortress of Resilience until now. No matter how tight my finances are, I'm willing to fork out 20 million silver taels. Xia Bingchuan was generous. Little brother, 20 million. Little brother, 20 million as well. I'll fork out 30 million. I'll have to fork out more just for my uncle. It's true that the money I have on hand is limited, so I can only fork out 10 million more than my brothers. Please excuse me, Chiu Yun-san said. The four noble young masters livened up the atmosphere at once. They were collectively embarrassed. However, how could the other young masters endure it? They could only swallow the bitter pill in silence. I'll fork out 10 million. Me too? Sob, what are you crying for? I'll fork out 10 million. No matter how unwilling they were, they still enthusiastically offered out their donation amounts. Now, everyone clearly understood that this sum of money was probably a life-saving measure. They did not come out. Just wait and see. After 3 rounds of wine, Yun Yang stood up to bid farewell. Everyone here is the nation's pillar. You've all stepped in to donate generously during this time of national crisis. I thank all of you on behalf of Marshal Tai. Then Yun Yang took the lead and left with a flourish. It had only been a meal, but he had pocketed a fortune that was close to 1.5 billion silver taels. It was as if he had pocketed a few mountains of gold. Basically, he had already emptied the pockets of these guys in front of him. As for Tai Jing, of course Tai Jing didn't discuss these things with me. Yun Xiaoyao and His Majesty the Emperor didn't know about it either. What was happening now was really Yun Yang's doing alone, that was all. In spite of this, the donation was really a donation. Yutong had sacrificed tens of millions of soldiers in these years. Just this year alone, there were close to 4 million soldiers who had been buried in the battlefield, unable to return to their homes. 1 year. What a cruel number it was. Even if the 1.5 billion silver taels were to be distributed among each of these 4 million soldiers, it would only amount to slightly more than 300 silver taels. What about the soldiers who were still alive and serving? The sum of money seemed to be a lot, but it was not inexhaustible when it was calculated. Even if it included the ones that he had plundered along the way, it was still far from enough. Although it might be an exaggeration to say that it was a drop in the bucket, Yun Yang still had to subsidize a lot more for it to be sufficient. On the same night, Yun Xiaoyao took the sum of money and headed to the palace. Once his ring was opened, the emperor's study was filled with banknotes. Both brothers were bathed in the sea of banknotes. Card. His Majesty wanted to say, F***CK. However, before he could speak, he remembered it and changed it to card. Where did he get so much money from? It's Yun Yang. Sai, this child is audacious, actually organizing a donation. You know that he's quite popular? Yun Xiaoyao spoke the truth, naturally pushing the blame to his son. After all, there was no need to find someone else to endorse this fact. Good child, what a good child. His Majesty was so moved that his hands were shaking. It was said that the imperial power was supreme, and that his words were law. However, only the person involved knew that there were too many times when he could only compromise. How could he be like Yun Yang, who could act as he pleased and act as he pleased? His Majesty knew this, and so did Yun Xiaoyao. This child means that this sum of money has to be used for a specific purpose. Yun Xiaoyao said, to be used exclusively for the families of the sacrificed soldiers. This, approved. His Majesty made the final decision. If there's another end to this matter, Yun Xiaoyao said, I will bear the responsibility. His Majesty was resolute. It was only then that Yun Xiaoyao heaved a sigh of relief. It was best to push the blame to His Majesty so that he could relax. Although Yun Xiaoyao knew that Yun Yang did not care about these things, it was better to avoid trouble if possible. If that's the case, this young brother shall take his leave. Now that there was nothing else, Yun Xiaoyao naturally wanted to slip away. Sigh, it's rare to have such a wonderful event. How can you not accompany me for a drink before you leave? His Majesty said. Forget it. Yun Xiaoyao chuckled humorlessly. My head is splitting right now. The Dragonhide treasure map has suddenly appeared in Tiantang City, and the outside world is already in chaos. The sudden appearance of that thing will only cause a greater commotion than the dictum of death. Yun Xiaoyao was right. The whole of Tiantang City was in utter chaos now. Some brothers have doubts about the 17th young master of the abyss. I just want to say that I've given everyone a hint at the beginning of this book. Mystical Qi. Tianxian continent. Although there are no more golden mystical and spirit mystical, everyone understands. Chapter 685. The chaos in Tiantang City this time was even worse than the previous one. After all, the brilliance of the dictum of death would only be amazed by the assassins of this world, but the Dragonhide's secret treasure would make anyone who knew about its background go crazy. The entire martial world was in a frenzy. The 17th master of the Abyss's Dragonhide treasure map had reappeared in the world. The speed at which this news spread was even faster than lightning. In less than 2 days' time, almost everyone knew about it and it was a popular story. Even Yun Xiaoyao was doubtful. How the F***ck did the news spread? How much time had it been? Tiantang City, which had gradually returned to its normal state, was once again overcrowded with martial artists, perhaps even more so than before. Now all the martial artists in the world, whether they were famous or not, whether their cultivation base was high or low, whether they were strong or weak, were all rushing towards the city, one after the other. Had it been taken away? Was this not nonsense? This thing had never been ownerless before. As long as I snatch it back, the treasure must have been prepared for me. I am the chosen one. What? My cultivation base is low, it's useless even if I go? F***ck. What if someone walks past me with the Dragonhide treasure map and shoves it into my arms? As long as I'm not as stupid as Dong Qianling and let everyone know about it, the treasure will be mine. How do you know that someone won't play the same trick again and plant it on a person with a lower cultivation base, and then die under the pursuit of others? Or maybe I run into a heavily injured person who happens to be carrying the Dragonhide treasure map. What if, no matter what, I must go? I must be the fated one. Otherwise, why would the treasure exist alongside me? The crowd was surging. Tiantang City's 4 city gates were now lined up in long queues, stretching for miles. The queue seemed to be growing longer as there was an endless stream of people coming from afar, like rivers flowing into the ocean. That was the only record of an immortal in the Tianxian continent. Yun Xiaoyao, who had returned from the palace, began to fret, so much so that his hair was turning white. What was going on? The Assassin's League had finally come to a halt, but now there was such an earth-shattering event. Dong Qianling was really a troublemaker. Grabbing Dong Qianling, King Yun did not care about his identity in the Dong family. He raised his rod and gave him a good beating, gritting his teeth in anger. It's all your fault, you bastard. Eldest young master Dong Qianling, whose leg had been broken, could only moan as he lay on the bed. He really wanted to explain, my boss, your son asked me to do this. However, Dong Qianling did not say this out loud. After all, if he did, it might not just be a broken leg. King Xiaoyao was ruthless, but compared to Yun Yang there was a vast difference. At most, King Xiaoyao could only break his leg once and he would be fine after that. If it were Yun Yang, however, he could break his leg 100 times or even more. Dong Qianling wisely chose to keep his mouth shut. Wasn't it because they were treating him like an idiot? So what? I've been an idiot for so many years, I don't care. Why is this matter so strange? Why did it suddenly erupt? Yun Xiaoyao frowned as he looked at Yun Yang in front of him. Yun Yang coughed. I really don't know. Dong Qianling and the others have been staying at home all this time. They've been as quiet as chickens. Other than cultivating, they've been chatting and fooling around. Not a single incident has happened. They can be said to be well behaved. Going out to drink like this is a common occurrence. Who knew that things would turn out this way? Actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with Dong Qianling's response. It's just that the secret treasures carrier is too rare. It's invulnerable. Otherwise, it would have been destroyed and there would have been no problem at all. Yun Xiaoyao squinted his eyes and said faintly, it's because of this that I find it odd. I don't think Dong Qianling's brain is that good. Instead, he seems to have purposely led to the rarity and preciousness of the pelt. So, you wouldn't be unaware of this matter, would you? Facing his father who had suddenly become wise, Yun Yang was silent for a moment before he said, this matter will not cause any harm to the empire of Yutong. Yun Xiaoyao sighed. So you do know. Or perhaps, you're actually the mastermind behind this? Don't worry. Everything that's happening now is within my expectations, within my grasp. Yun Yang said calmly, although the martial world storm will inevitably rise from here on out, Yutong can also use this opportunity to soar into the sky. Yun Xiaoyao said, within your expectations, within your grasp? You're getting more and more boastful now. This is equivalent to dancing on the tip of a blade. How can you be sure that you won't get hurt? Yun Yang said, how can one not take risks if one wishes to conquer the world? Do you know that Tiantang City will be the center of the entire continent once this matter is out? Countless martial world people and sects will come. By then it will form a massive whirlpool. Yun Xiaoyao sighed worriedly. I'm only afraid that they won't come. A hint of red flashed across Yun Yang's eyes. Yun Xiaoyao was silent. If it's done properly, Yutong's foundation can be laid from here on out, Yun Yang said in a low voice. Yun Xiaoyao was silent at Yun Yang's words. After a long time he finally asked, can it really be so? Of course, and it's not just that. Yun Yang said, there are a few martial world sects that I want to take the chance to annihilate. There are also a few people that I want to finish off along the way. As for the other miscellaneous matters, I'll deal with all of them as well, ending everything with this plan. Yun Xiaoyao asked worriedly, will this plan bring harm to the royal family? Yun Yang replied indifferently, so what if it's the royal family? Those who should bleed will inevitably bleed. Yun Xiaoyao heaved a long sigh towards the sky. There was no longer any need to continue speaking. Are you cleaning up the mess now? Yun Xiaoyao asked with a hint of melancholy. Yun Yang was silent for a long time. It's not that stage yet. Yun Xiaoyao sighed again. There's always wind and thunder before us. We must proceed with caution, Yun Xiaoyao finally said. After saying this, he seemed to have aged many years in an instant. Yun Yang felt apologetic. He wanted to say something, but he did not say it in the end. In the middle of the night, just as Yun Yang was about to sleep, Yun Xiaoyao suddenly arrived. This matter might be troublesome. Yun Xiaoyao's face was rather pale. What's wrong? I have to confirm something with you. Are the two pieces of leather you've made really impenetrable, impervious to fire and water? Dong Qianling, are they not faking it? It seems like they are, sigh. Yun Xiaoyao sighed in melancholy. Chapter 686. So, while Dong Qianling's request for help is fake, the props are real and there's a truth to it? I think so. The reason you made up, where did the legend of the 17th Master of the Abyss come from? Yun Xiaoyao's gaze grew sharper. Yun Yang chuckled. This legend isn't exactly a secret. Anyone who is knowledgeable would know about it. There are many records of it in unofficial history. It can be said to be the most famous legend and myth in Tianshan continent. Yun Xiaoyao stood rooted to the spot. After a long time, he said bitterly, Child, have you ever thought that these two pieces of leather are real? Yun Yang replied, it has to look real. Otherwise, would I have asked Dong Qianling to guide the plot? Doesn't it look real now? Doesn't that mean that you know it might be real? This is not important. Yun Xiaoyao heaved a long sigh. Child, there's always a chance. I can only hope that you've handed over the fake one. Otherwise, you might have missed the most important opportunity of your life. That opportunity can make you immortal, a legend of immortality, a legend. Yun Xiaoyao's regret was like the waves of the ocean, never ending, each wave higher than the one before. That's a story for another time. Yun Yang said calmly, first and foremost, I am a human. As a human, I have my responsibility and my duty to protect. I have family, friends, brothers. There are unrequited favors and unavenged grudges. Then I am a citizen of Yutong. As a citizen of Yutong, I have a duty and a duty to protect my country, my home, my people. Then I am still a soldier of Yutong. Protecting the country is my original intention. Only after I've done all these can I say what a cultivator is like. Only then can I have the right to say that I'm a cultivator with the potential to become an immortal. So, no matter what I do, no matter what methods I use, I want to accomplish all these before I talk about the rest. I'm not boasting, nor am I trying to sell my feelings. This is what I really think and do, moving forward steadily. In fact, for the sake of my goal, I will even do some dishonorable things without any hesitation. Yun Yang answered honestly, "What's the harm in that?" Yun Xiaoyao could only sigh. Now let's talk about these two pictures. There's a 50% chance that they're real. There's also a 50% chance that it's fake. Yun Yang said casually, "If it's fake, it doesn't matter. If it's true, then I only have two in my hands. According to my calculations, we need at least 6 or 7 pieces of this map to find that secret place. I have confirmed this long ago. There is no doubt about it. Let's take 10,000 steps back. Even if this dream comes true, no one has been able to gather all of them in the past hundreds of thousands of years. Even if I keep them and keep them for a long time, I don't know when I'll be able to gather them all. If I can't gather all the maps, I won't be able to find that place even after 100,000 years. Since that's the case, I might as well use him as a tool. What's the big deal? Everyone in the world is after it, but I, Yun Yang, don't care about it at all." His words rendered Yun Xiaoyao speechless. He was speechless for a long while, stunned on the spot. After a long while, he nodded and said hoarsely in a complicated voice, "Perhaps you're right. But you can't deny that you've already confirmed your future. Your future isn't here. Are you preparing for a rainy day, paving the way for the future?" Yun Yang was silent for a moment before he said, "Paving the way for the future isn't so clear. I can only say that perhaps." He grinned, beaming like the sun as he said harmoniously, "No matter what the future holds, what I want to do now is to do the right things and the wrong things during the time I'm in the empire of Yutong. When I leave or when I die, I have a clear conscience. That's all. This is already enough. This is also my highest aspiration so far." Yun Yang said, "For now, such a thought is great. However, when I think I've done everything and leave, perhaps I'll change my mind when I come back. Because it's always been others who owe me. I'll never owe anyone anything, be it in the past, present, or future." Yun Yang smiled gracefully. Yun Xiaoyao looked at Yun Yang's smile, feeling a mixture of emotions. After a long while, he said bitterly, "Perhaps you don't owe anyone anything." Yun Yang suddenly felt a twinge of bitterness in his heart. Looking at the handsome middle-aged man in front of him, he actually felt an indescribable sense of emotion. Perhaps one day when he left, the entire world would owe him. Only this middle-aged man in front of him, he owed him. Right from the beginning, he had used him to conceal his identity as one of the 9 Supremes. It had been going on until now. However, he had never mentioned it. Recently, he had already suspected and even confirmed that Yun Yang was Supreme Cloud of the 9 Supremes, but he still did not mention it. Instead, he had feigned ignorance as usual and helped Yun Yang the most. He was not Yun Yang's father. However, he had already treated Yun Yang as his own son. At that moment, Yun Yang was stunned, rooted to the spot. Yun Xiaoyao stood quietly for a while before he suddenly smiled stiffly and said, "It's late. Go to sleep." Saying that, he turned to leave. "Wait," Yun Yang called out subconsciously. Yun Xiaoyao stopped and asked in a low voice, "What is it?" Yun Yang was silent for a moment before he smiled bitterly and said, "Nothing. Good, sleep early." Yun Xiaoyao strode out of the room. The door closed. Yun Yang was still standing in the room looking at the closed door. For a long time he did not move an inch. "What I owe you, how am I going to make it up to you?" He heaved a long sigh. Just now he had the urge to take action, but he did not do so in the end. Perhaps, this urge was the only compensation he could give that person. The most valuable compensation. The 17th Master of the Abyss. The Dragonhide treasure map. Impenetrable. Impervious to fire and water. This series of explosive news pointed to a single location, Tiantang City. The news spread rapidly in an extremely short amount of time, reaching everyone's ears. It was so unexpected, yet so captivating, that it caused one's imagination to run wild. Yutong's imperial court reacted swiftly and had already issued a curfew at once, forbidding entry and exits. However, the reality now was that there were very few people who left. Instead, those who were not allowed in by the officials had all entered. Chapter 687. Tiantang City was Yutong's capital. If it was not for the enemy invading the city gates would be opened every day to allow the citizens to enter and leave freely. Therefore, no matter how strict the martial law was, the citizens would still be allowed to enter and leave. At most, the inspection would be slightly stricter. The people of the martial world did not think of themselves as ordinary people most of the time. They felt that they were different from the common folk, but now they were the common folk. It was the truth. Were the people of the martial world not common folk? The so-called ban was at most to slow down the speed of the martial world practitioners entering Tiantang City. That was all. Furthermore, the ban was used against the common folk. While the ordinary martial world practitioners were rather intimidating, these ace cultivators who thought they were qualified to snatch the Dragonhide treasure map were all high and mighty existences. They had 10,000 ways to invade Tiantang City without alerting anyone or any force. The first batch of people who entered were the assassins who had come because of the dictum of death. They had gradually ceased their activities but had yet to go far. The Assassins' League seemed to have won the battle with the Four Seasons Tower, but in reality, both sides had suffered great losses. Fearing that the infamous Four Seasons Tower would retaliate, they had broken up and retreated to the forest 1,000 miles around Tiantang City to recuperate and wait for a chance to strike. After all, the mission had not been completed, the mission of the dictum of death had not been completed. How could they leave just like that? Unexpectedly, they had only rested for a few days before such a major incident erupted in Tiantang City all of a sudden. It was an incident that was even more sensational than the dictum of death. For a moment, even Hen Bieli and Hong Zhan truly felt that they did not want them to have a good time. Damn it. This situation clearly doesn't even give me time to rest properly. However, could they not fight for such a priceless treasure? Did they know what speed meant in war? Therefore, all the assassins swarmed in and entered Tiantang City forcefully. As countless assassins swarmed in, it was as if a signal had been lit. The martial world people from all over the place swarmed in with even more exaggerated and undisguised fervor. What? The city gates are not allowed to enter? We want to avoid trouble, we don't have the time to clash with the officials. Can we fly in at night instead of going through the gates? Therefore, for a long time after that, Tiantang City was like a gigantic cauldron while the martial world experts were like dumplings falling from the sky, falling into it one by one. Actually, it wasn't appropriate to call it a dumpling. Had you ever seen a pure black dumpling? The ready-made clothing stores around Tiantang City were all sold out of black fabrics. In just a few days, the price of black, nocturnal garments and Tiantang garments had risen tenfold. In the residence of Yunyang slowly moved a chair over and sat under the pergola, reading in silence. A gentle breeze blew, causing his purple robe to billow, his sleeves fluttering in the wind. He was completely at ease. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his jade-white face was filled with elegance and grace. You really don't regret it at all? Are you putting on an act or are you feeling heartache? Ji Lingxi paced around him, Shangguan Lingxiu sitting opposite him. That's the 17th master of the Abyss's Dragonhide treasure map. Tossing it out just like that as bait is a reckless waste of God's gift. What a waste of such a good item. Ji Lingxi expressed her heartache, especially for Yunyang. If you had gotten your hands on the Dragonhide treasure map and found that place and cultivated the mystical skill within, you might have been able to unlock this red light earlier. That's the legacy of the strongest legend in this world, the 17th master of the Abyss, after all. Ji Lingxi sighed in pity, feeling a little shy at the same time. Yunyang rolled his eyes and shifted his gaze away from the book to look straight at Ji Lingxi. What can I do by unlocking the red light? Yes? Ji Lingxi uttered the word subconsciously. Suddenly, her neck flushed as she growled, Yunyang, get up and spar. Ha ha. Shangguan Lingxiu, who was standing beside them, could not help guffawing with a flushed face. Yunyang's words were truly, hearing Shangguan Lingxiu's laughter, Ji Lingxi could no longer care about challenging Yunyang to a duel. She stomped her feet and dashed into her room, shutting the door behind her. Yunyang raised his head in confusion. I didn't say anything. Why are you just talking and not practicing? Shangguan Lingxiu rolled her eyes and chased after Ji Lingxi. Didn't say anything? Fine, I'll believe you. What's so great about little Bai? Strictly speaking, Yunyang could not be blamed for this. Yunyang's mind was not on the conversation at all. He was replying almost casually. Most of his thoughts were on the many messages sent by the Nine Heavens dictum. Someone had entered the city. Someone from a certain sect had entered the city. Someone from a certain sect had arrived a few miles away from Tiantang City and was advancing at an accelerated pace. Tiantang City would turn into a martial world's paradise once night fell. Nightwalkers scurried back and forth as if they were rushing to a market. They did not avoid people at all. In just 4 short days, the Dragonhide treasure map that had been in Dong Tianling's hands had changed hands 4 times. It was also because of these 4 transmissions that it had directly or indirectly caused the deaths of no less than 100 martial world practitioners. Every martial world practitioner who had died on the spot had been identified after the incident, and they were all reputable figures. Among them were 3 or 4 experts who were said to have long retired from the martial world, the pinnacle of the world. The treasure map has now changed hands from sky-traversing sword Qing Zishan's hands. Qing Zishan had died in Hong Zhan's hands. However, the secret map had ended up in Cheng Heiyun's hands. Right now, Cheng Heiyun and his brothers have become the target of public criticism. Cheng Heiyun has been confirmed to have been intercepted and killed. 3 of his 4 brothers have also died. Only the second brother, Cheng Mingyun, managed to escape with the secret map in his possession, heavily injured. It has been confirmed that Cheng Mingyun is dead, and the secret map has fallen into the hands of a black-clothed man with a short sword. Based on his movements, he should be the former one-legged bandit Qi Mingluo, who has retired from the martial world a long time ago. Just like that, the news spread endlessly, layer upon layer. Yun Yang observed carefully with a frown, but he did not give any specific instructions. He was waiting for the news he longed to see to appear. The secret map has fallen into the hands of the Hall of Crimson Blade. Now the Hall of Crimson Blade's Hong Zhan has joined forces with Hen Bieli. Countless assassins have come from all directions to help and are trapped in the east of the city. The members of the Mai sect who have retreated from worldly affairs have appeared 300 miles away from the south gate of Tiantang City. The news Yun Yang had been anticipating had finally arrived. Mai sect. A cruel smile hung on the corners of Yun Yang's lips. Have we arrived? In a flash of purple, he had returned to his room. In the next moment he had already vanished from the room. Chapter 688. Sword, Snow and Frost were recuperating in the small yard that Yun Yang had arranged for them. Their injuries had long healed and their cultivation base had returned to normal. Even so, they did not make a move despite knowing about the fight for the Dragonhide treasure map that had garnered the attention of the world. They were not even interested. What should we do next? I have nothing else in my mind now. I'll retire from the martial world as soon as I repay young Master Yun's kindness. Living a peaceful life is better than anything else. What about the seal on me? I really don't care about the restriction. All I can think about now is to find a good place to bury my bones and invite Saber and Ice over. When the seal is triggered, I'll sever my meridians there and be on my way quietly. As for what happens after death, what happens to the god's bones in my body, those are matters for the future. How can we care so much? If we die, then we die. If we die, then all will be over. Venerable Lord Snow said softly, "That's right. I'm completely disheartened towards the martial world and the human realm. Now, I really don't want to stay a moment longer." Venerable Lord Sword and Venerable Lord Frost sighed with their heads lowered. It had only been a few days but the 3 of them had become haggard. Each of them looked like they had aged decades. Even when their injuries had healed and their cultivation base had recovered, their condition did not improve at all. They were like 3 old men lying in their coffins, waiting to take their last breaths. There was no longer any anger to speak of. Before this, I would never have thought that the 3 venerable lords of the Four Seasons Tower would become like this. Venerable Lord Snow chuckled bitterly in a self-deprecating manner. The battle outside is earth-shattering and bloody, but we can actually chat and drink tea here, thinking of quitting the martial world. Venerable Lord Frost and Venerable Lord Sword chuckled bitterly in unison and sighed deeply. If there's no goal and pursuit in life, this is probably how it is. Our original intention in the past, the organization that we were so loyal to, turns out that it's just, the heart is dead and the person is tired. Even if the body is still alive, it's just a few more breaths. Who would have the patience to care about the martial world's killing? Let those who want to deal with the troubles of the mortal world fight. At this moment there was a knock on the door. Then Yun Yang walked in with food and wine in his hands. Young Master Yun is here. The 3 of them stood up at the same time. From the initial hostility, to disdain, to respect, and finally to gratitude today, the relationship between the 3 of them and Yun Yang was so complicated that even they could not explain it clearly. The main purpose of our meeting today is to send off the three of you. Yunyang smiled and said, "A toast to you, wishing you a free and unfettered life in the secular world from now on." Venerable Lord Snow said faintly, "We appreciate young master's kindness, but it is impossible for us to leave without doing anything." He stared into Yunyang's eyes and enunciated each word clearly, "What we owe you has to be repaid before we can talk about leaving. Otherwise, even if we hide in the forest, we will still feel indebted to them. If our hearts are uneasy, how can we talk about freedom?" Yunyang smiled and said, "I have come to seek the help of the three of you. Take it as helping others and helping myself. It is mutually beneficial." The three venerable ones' eyes lit up. "Young master, please speak." "My sect." Yunyang placed the dishes and wine on the table slowly and said faintly, "You should know where their sect is. What I want the three of you to help with is to remove the Mai golden hook from this world. There are no living beings in the headquarters of the Mai sect. No living beings have escaped." Yunyang enunciated each word clearly, "This is what I would like to ask of the three of you." Venerable Lord Snow did not look troubled at all as he agreed immediately, "All right. Leave this to the three of us. Even if the three of us perish, we shall fulfill young master's wish." Perhaps the three venerable lords have misunderstood something. The Mai sect's leader, elders, grand elder and the rest. The Mai sect's elites have all been mobilized and are on their way to Tiantang City, Yunyang said. "Of course I will take care of these people. What I need you to deal with is the portion that remains in the Mai sect." "Then there's no problem." Venerable Lord Frost said eerily, "The Mai sect is destined to be annihilated. 1,000-year legacy will no longer exist." Yunyang raised his cup and said with a smile, "Farewell today, we shall never meet again. May the three of you be free and unfettered, untainted by worldly affairs." "Thank you, young Master Yun." The three of them stood up simultaneously and bowed. All four of them understood. After annihilating the Mai sect, it was impossible for Sword, Snow and Frost to return. Both parties would become strangers and forget each other in the martial world. "Please wait, young Master Yun," said Venerable Lord Snow as he entered the room with Venerable Lord Sword and Venerable Lord Frost. Yunyang could not help being stunned, unable to figure out why the three of them wanted him to stay. A moment later he was surprised to hear grunts coming from inside. He could not help but feel even more puzzled. Then the scent of blood wafted over with the wind. The next moment, Venerable Lord Snow appeared before Yunyang with a pale face, 3 pieces of bloody bones in his hands. Behind him were Venerable Lord Frost and Venerable Lord Sword, who were also drenched in blood. The trio's gaze was fixated on the bones in Venerable Lord Snow's hands, their gazes extremely complicated. "These 3 bones are what the 3 of us have nourished with our chi, blood and mystical skill for years. The bone of Snow God, the bone of Sword God and the bone of Frost God." Venerable Lord Snow said painfully, "Also, this is what young Master Yun gave me last time, the bone of Ice God. These 4 pieces of God's bones are all given to young Master Yun for the future." Yun Yang's mind raced, his scalp tingling from the shock. He stood up abruptly. "What is this for? All of you?" Venerable Lord Snow smiled. "We know that young Master Yun is compassionate. We stand on the same side, of course. You can't bear to see us cripple our bodies. However, the 4 of us are destined to be unable to escape the 4 Seasons Tower's pursuit. These 4 pieces of God's bones are items that the 4 Seasons Tower must retrieve no matter what. However, we're not resigned to it. So we've caused some trouble for young Master Yun before we part ways." Venerable Lord Frost endured the pain but said with a smile, "Young Master Yun is Yutong's nobleman and has great connections with the military. Perhaps you'll have the chance to meet Lord Supreme Cloud in the future. If young Master Yun doesn't want to keep these troublesome items, just hand them to Supreme Cloud when you see him. I believe these bones will be useful to him." Yunyang nodded. "I know, I understand. However, will your actions affect your combat power?" Venerable Lord Snow said faintly, "I'm afraid we won't need much of our combat power to deal with the Mai sect that has lost all its elites." The 3 of them raised their goblets at the same time. "Young Master Yun, the martial world is fraught with danger. Take care. Take care." Yunyang emptied his goblet. "We'll take our leave now." The 3 of them simply bandaged their wounds and waved their hands with a smile. They didn't even bring anything with them and just swaggered off. Yunyang watched the trio's receding silhouettes quietly, his heart filled with emotions. It was as if a piece of the past, a piece of history, had been sealed in his memory with the departure of these 3 people. Take care. Chapter 689. 870 miles ahead will be Tiantang City. There was a troop of more than 100 people on horseback, all of them dressed in hemp garments and wearing tall crowns. One of them spoke loudly as he galloped his horse. There's no need to be in such a hurry anymore. Although the dragon hide treasure map has appeared, it won't be settled without at least 1,000 or 800 lives. A haggard old man said, later, everyone should take a break and conserve your energy. Don't be rash and impulsive when you enter the city. Observe the surroundings first. Don't step into the battlefield and rashly attract too much attention. You're right, Grand Elder. This is from experience. Reckless impulses will only lead to eternal damnation. There's a small relay station in front. We can rest there for a while. All right. The group galloped forward at top speed. When he was about 100 feet away from the relay station, the wind and clouds in the sky suddenly surged. A gust of wind suddenly blew without any warning. As the strong wind howled, the dust on the ground danced in the wind. It was like a screen covering the entire group of people in hemp clothes. Skilled cultivators were able to sense the impending danger. When the Mai sect saw the anomaly, they stopped in unison, their faces solemn as their gazes darted around. Everyone understood one thing. This sudden gust of strange wind was definitely not simple. Which friend has arrived? What can I do for you? The Mai sect's Grand Elder's sunken eyes shone brightly as he spoke in a low voice. Since you're here, please enlighten us in person. Our sect awaits your instruction here. The wind continued to howl, but the surroundings were silent and solemn. Dust billowed in all directions, looking like it was getting more intense. Grass flew in the air as the sky darkened, but no one answered. The Grand Elder's expression darkened as he hollered in a low voice, "Set up the formation, be on guard." If they did not harbor ill intentions, they should have shown themselves after making a small commotion. Since the other party did not appear as they were invited, they must have come with ill intentions. With a soft swoosh, the golden hooks of the 28 Mai sect members shone in unison, and they immediately spread out. Their positions were orderly and it was obvious that they had great teamwork. As for the rest of the people, they stayed within the first layer of defense. They formed groups of 9 and formed smaller formations, ready to attack at any time to attack the enemy and rescue their friends. In the most central position, there were only the Grand Supreme Elder, the Linen Sect leader, and 3 other elders. The 5 of them stayed in the center to coordinate with each other, guarding against any sudden ambushes or special big moves to ensure their safety. The formation was interlinked with each other, echoing inside and outside. It was the 108 Constellations formation that the Mai sect had used to awe the pugilistic world for countless years. As the Mai sect set up their formation, the howling gale intensified. The omnipresent murderous aura thickened as well, as though it had solidified. A look of surprise and solemnity appeared in the Grand Elder's eyes. Who are you? With your skills, how could you use such a trick to hide your head and show your tail? How could a wise man do that? Since you're targeting our sect, why don't you show yourself and have a proper battle? Before the Grand Supreme Elder's voice echoed, a cold laughter came from the wind. Then a voice rang out leisurely, filling the wind and swaying along with it. It could be heard from far and near. I have no grudge with the world, my golden hook, untainted by the mundane world, undefiled by the 9 levels of hell. What do the generals, ministers, and nobles have to do with me? Children and grandchildren, remember not to provoke gratitude or enmity. Once a grudge is formed, it will be forever. Once a grudge is formed, it will be forever. Forever. Those words were the warning words left behind by the Mai sect's founding ancestor. Ever since the Mai sect's founding ancestor, it had always been regarded as the golden rule, the voice of the sect. Not only did no one dare defy it, even doubting it would result in expulsion from the sect, never to be hired again. Sweat beaded on the Grand Supreme Elder's forehead as he hollered, "Who are you? Come out." In the wind, a voice boomed up and down, left and right, saying faintly, "You're the Mai sect's Grand Supreme Elder, the one they call the Golden Hook King. Wang Changfeng, am I right?" Wang Changfeng shut his eyes and said coldly, "You're deliberately mystifying me. Are you bent on becoming our sect's enemy?" The voice in the wind replied faintly, "Whether we're enemies or not is not my decision alone. I'm only asking you, do you still remember the Mai sect's ancestral teachings?" The muscles on Wang Changfeng's aged face twitched as he said faintly, "The Mai sect's ancestral teachings are our business. It's not up to an outsider like you to ask whether I remember them or not." The voice in the wind chuckled coldly and said, "The world is indeed fickle and people's hearts are not what they used to be. The Mai sect today is filled with people who have forgotten their roots and go against the ancestral teachings. However, do you still remember the consequences of going against the ancestral teachings? The Mai sect leader bellowed, "Who are you? You keep talking about the Mai sect's ancestral teachings. Who are you to speak out against them?" The voice in the wind said coldly, "I guess you're the Mai sect's current leader, Guzuham? Your Mai sect members have gone against the ancestral teachings, deceiving their masters and annihilating their ancestors. What kind of punishment do you, as the leader, think they should receive?" Guzuheng smirked. "Any kind of punishment is fine, but at least it should be taught a lesson by a cowardly person like you." The voice in the air chuckled. "It's not a cowardly person's turn to teach a lesson." "Well said. Outsiders have no right to interfere with your sect's matters. However, I wonder what will happen if a cowardly person like me annihilates your Mai sect." Guzuheng scoffed angrily. "Show yourself if you have the guts. Do you think you can annihilate my Mai sect by playing tricks and fighting with your tongue? Are the martial world full of people like you who only know how to talk?" The voice in the wind guffawed, reciting, "Once a grudge is formed, it ends forever. Once a grudge is formed, it ends forever." Suddenly the wind and clouds changed again. Golden light flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Then countless bolts of lightning struck down. Streaks of dancing silver snakes flashed ferociously in the evening sky, descending upon the mortal realm. Boom, 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 it was as if countless explosives were detonated at the same time on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the entire area was covered in flames. The heavenly thunder calamity was earth-shattering. The wind and clouds in the sky grew more intense, surging with a myriad of phenomena. However, the Mai sect was indeed a sect with 1,000 years of heritage. Although they could not help but panic in the face of such a powerful storm and thunder, they raised their golden hooks at the same time. A brilliant golden light shot up into the sky. The formation took on the apocalyptic heavenly thunder calamity head-on. Not a single person perished from the heavenly thunder calamity. The mighty power of the 108 constellations formation lived up to its reputation. It was truly impressive. A sneer came from the sky. "Mai sect, those wearing Mai clothes are indeed impressive to be able to withstand the heavenly thunder calamity." The words were filled with mockery. It was obviously saying that the Mai sect should be struck by lightning for disrespecting their ancestral teachings. Guzuheng howled, "Cowards! Come out!" Chapter 690. With a chuckle, the lightning suddenly exploded. The apocalyptic thunder in the sky was endless and relentless, pressuring them continuously. However, the Mai sect gradually steadied their footing after resisting it for a while. The Grand Supreme Elder and the Mai sect leader could clearly tell that while the apocalyptic thunder was powerful and had a continuous effect, it would be difficult to achieve its full effect against a formation like the Mai sects if it could not take down the opponent in one fell swoop. Moreover, it would consume a lot of the caster's spiritual source. No matter how impressive the caster's cultivation base was or how miraculous their skills were, they would not be able to sustain it for a long period of time. The Mai sect would definitely gain the upper hand in the end. After all, the constellation formation was operated by more than 100 people. It was not something a single person could withstand. Just when the Mai sect's higher-ups were confident that their chances of victory had changed, a low cry came from the sky again, "Retract." Before the voice could echo in the air, many Mai sect members cried out inexplicably. The Grand Elder and the rest looked towards the source of the sound in surprise, only to see a haze of blood rising from the bodies of those who cried out. The haze drifted into the sky and converged to form a blood cloud that shrouded the sky. Although the Mai sect's treasure, the constellation formation, was incredibly powerful and its defensive ability was extraordinary, able to withstand the apocalyptic thunder and keep those within the formation alive, it did not mean that they were uninjured. There was a difference in the cultivation base of the Mai sect disciples who had set up the formation. Many disciples with lower cultivation bases were injured. Although the injuries were not severe and would not affect their combat ability, they were still injured. Faced with the sudden cry of retract from the sky, all the injured had lost a great amount of blood from their wounds. The result of losing a large amount of blood in an instant was that they became dizzy and flustered. They had no strength left to spare. In the blink of an eye, the sky was still filled with lightning and thunder, and dozens of people had already been struck to death. It had only been a moment, but the Mai sect's famed constellation formation had already been broken. The sudden change came naturally. The Grand Elder Wang Changfeng, who had just regained his composure, cried out, 9 Supremes? Yutong's 9 Supremes? Wind and clouds surged, thunder and lightning intersected, and blood mist filled the air. If Wang Qingfeng still couldn't guess who it was, then he didn't need to mingle around anymore. A cold snicker was heard as a gray silhouette appeared in the sky in a flash. Speaking faintly, the Mai sect has disobeyed the ancestral teachings and came down the mountain to participate in the dynasty's power struggle. They're digging their own graves. Your sect's ancestral master can't deal with you personally, so I'll do it on his behalf to preserve his reputation. He then howled, "That's right, I am Yutong's 9 Supremes, Supreme Cloud of the 9 Supremes. The clouds shroud the world, judge thy end." Amidst the long roar, a snow-white saber light flashed. He smiled coldly and said, "Originally I could have killed all of you in secret. However, I was afraid that you would die in confusion, which would make me feel nothing. Therefore I revealed myself and played with you. I will let you all go to the underworld with no regrets and die in peace." The 9 Supremes of Yutong. It was the 9 Supreme Cloud who had reappeared in the world, carrying out his killing spree. Wang Changfeng and Ge Zuheng's expressions changed drastically once more. At this moment they felt that the pressure they were enduring was 3 times greater than before. Back then the ancestral teachings forbade them from participating in the dynasty's power struggle. However, when they learned that Dongxian was the destined ruler and was about to unify Tianxian, they were finally convinced and had sent their elite experts down the mountain to assist. Their intention was to conquer Yutong in one fell swoop and build a national sect in Dongxian. They could then obtain the power of national fortune and lay the foundation of the sect that would never be uprooted. In spite of this, who would have thought that the so-called destined ruler, Dongxian, who had the upper hand, would be defeated? The members of their sect had just joined the army and fought their first battle. Dongxian had been defeated. Until now there were still some senior officials of Dongxian who held a sour opinion. If it wasn't for a certain cursed sect, we might have won. Such words were infuriating. In spite of this, the Mai sect could not refute them. Firstly, it was the truth, and secondly, it was meaningless to refute them. Even Dongshuan's emperor, who had initially treated the Mai sect like a distinguished guest, was obviously indifferent towards them. He no longer hated them. If they did not leave, Dongxian might send someone to wipe out the Mai sect. What made the Mai sect completely give up was the impatient words of Dongshuan's emperor, who was the one who suggested asking for the Mai sect's help back then. "What's in your head? Mai sect, wear hemp every day. What kind of person would wear hemp? Only those who die in their family would wear hemp. How dare you invite such an unlucky sect to help? Are you afraid that my army won't be defeated quickly enough?" Ge Zuheng could still remember how he almost spat blood when he heard the words. How could someone speak like that? We've gone against our ancestral teachings for Dongxian and so many of our people have died, yet there's not even a word of comfort. Remember what someone had said back then? "I've waited for all of you to come like seedlings waiting for rain, like winter waiting for warm clothes." Are you complaining that we're disheartened now? Coincidentally, the Dragonhide treasure map incident had broken out in Yutong. After some discussion, they had decided to send their elites over. It would be best if they could get their hands on the map and retreat to the forest to lay low. If they could not, they would retreat to the mountains and live in seclusion. Who would have thought that they would be stopped by Supreme Cloud of Yutong's 9 Supremes just as they arrived outside Tiantang City after traveling thousands of miles? He had even started a killing spree. It was as if the entire sect was going to be annihilated. Lord Supreme Cloud. Wang Changfeng's golden hook glowed as he turned into a golden whirlwind, intercepting the dense saber light that was like a downpour. He called out, "We're a reclusive sect. We've only been involved in the worldly conflict by chance. Now that we've parted ways with Dongxian, we have nothing more to do with it. We've returned to the world. Once this is over, we'll return to the mountains immediately and never come out again. Lord Supreme Cloud, why must you push us too far?" Yunyang chuckled coldly. Push us too far? Skilled cultivators rarely get involved in the wars of the continent's empires. This is Tianxian continent's iron law since the beginning of time. Once involved, the karma must be severed. Think of how many of Yutong's brave men have died in your hands during the Fortress of Resilience. Did any one of us say that you've pushed us too far then? He hollered, "Since karma has been sown, karma shall be reaped. Since the Mai sect has sown the seed of blood debt, they shall bear the retribution of annihilation. This is the cycle of fate, there's nothing to be said about it. Today is the day of retribution. Everyone from the Mai sect shall be killed without mercy." Amidst his holler, the saber light glowed even brighter as clusters of blades flew out. Yun Yang had turned into a cloud of wind that was tangible but intangible, charging into the crowd and killing without restraint. No matter how the Mai sect's men defended and counterattacked, their golden hooks falling like a waterfall, they could only land on his shadow, unable to cause any actual harm to him. It had only been a short while, but wherever Yun Yang passed, horses and men were thrown off their feet. Blood splattered everywhere. Wherever he went, people fell one by one. The martial arts and mystical skills that they had painstakingly cultivated were useless against Yun Yang's bizarre cultivation method. Wang Changfeng chased after the gray shadow with all his might, attacking and blocking with all his might in an attempt to turn the tide. However, all his attacks and obstructions were futile, just like the rest of the Mai sect's men, as if they were hitting thin air. For a moment, the men and horses were thrown off their feet. Chapter 691. Lord Supreme Cloud. Wang Changfeng suddenly bellowed, "This old man has something to say." His voice was thunderous and deafening, but Yun Yang was still weaving in and out like a whirlwind, with no intention of stopping. The strange ambush that had no form or substance, the saber truth, destiny blade that was unrivaled in the world, complemented by the indestructible and indestructible divine edge, in addition to his extreme speed, made him like a dragon in the sea, a tiger roaring deep in the mountains. No one could stop him, killing people like they were chickens. Right now this place was Yun Yang's absolute turf. After 99 consecutive swift slashes, 7 Mai sect disciples were sliced into pieces as if they were being sliced into pieces. His voice drifted over, "Wang Changfeng, speak if you want to. I'm killing but I can still hear. Your words won't delay my movements. Don't worry." The gray shadow spun and pounced to the other side. Wherever it passed, there was still blood, each wave higher than the one before. Wang Changfeng's heart was dead. The invincible golden hook that had been indestructible in his hands and had helped him kill countless enemies had fallen on Supreme Cloud countless times. From the initial ecstasy to the confusion to the futile effort, to the helplessness and despair in the end, all of it proved one thing: he was powerless against Supreme Cloud. The battlefield now was like a group of people going up against a ghost. It looked like they had the advantage in numbers, but the truth was that no matter how capable they were, their attacks were completely useless against the enemy. Watching his disciples die one by one without being able to do anything, the feeling of helplessness was indescribable. The Mai sect had sent 130 people this time, all of them elites. Their original intention was to snatch the Dragonhide treasure map, but more than 40 of them had died before they even reached Tiantang City. In addition, the death toll was still increasing. Supreme Cloud's saber light was like snow, shining brightly. Each time it flickered, a ray of blood flew. "Supreme Cloud. Supreme Cloud. Please stop. I have something to say." Gu Zuheng and Wang Changfeng's hair was disheveled, and their faces were deathly pale. They cried out in succession, their voices filled with grief. If they had initially harbored the thought of retaliating and killing Supreme Cloud, they had long lost their initial intentions after witnessing the scene and the helplessness they felt after experiencing it for themselves. It was really impossible to kill it. Also, looking closely at Supreme Cloud's attack strength, he was at least at the 5th level of the Dao realm. In the entire Mai sect, there were only a few people who were above Dao realm stage 5. However, even these people, including himself, could only scatter a puff of smoke when they went up against Supreme Cloud, no matter what power or arcane technique they used. If he used too much strength, he might even hit his own people on the other side. They really wanted to negotiate and even beg for mercy, but the other party didn't even give them the chance to beg for mercy. It was just killing blindly. It was obvious that what the other party had said from the start of his attack to wipe out everyone in the Mai sect was not empty talk. Instead, he was putting his words into action and it was effective, and he was realizing it step by step. "Everyone scatter and escape. Every single one of you who escapes counts." Wang Changfeng hollered, his old eyes already glistening with tears. With his experience and knowledge, how could he not tell that even if the strategy of scattering and escaping was successful, there would not be many who could escape in the end when faced with such an enemy? The Mai sect had lost all of its elites in this battle. Unexpectedly, just as the Mai sect's people scattered to fight and escape for their own lives, Yun Yang suddenly howled. Wisps of ghastly fog rose from the area around the battlefield. The ghastly fog rose from all directions, covering the sky and earth, forming a complete encirclement in an instant. For a moment, their ears were filled with the cries of ghosts, as if they were in the underworld of Azura. An eerie voice spoke faintly, "Everyone has arrived at the Temple of the Dark Azura. Who can still escape?" More than a dozen indistinct figures appeared in the nether fog. Each and every one of them wore a tall crown in the clouds and fog. Their gazes were cold and murderous. Wang Changfeng and the others' already chilled hearts grew even colder. The concourse of the underworld. The 10 kings of the concourse of the underworld had arrived at the same time. How could they break out of the encirclement when faced with such a force? Did the heavens want to end the Mai sect? After the 10 Yama kings appeared, they did not make a move, only watching Yun Yang's massacre from afar. However, the Mai disciples who attempted to break out of the encirclement were all killed. With these 10 people blocking the way, the Mai disciples could not break out of the encirclement. Supreme Cloud. What happened back then was indeed our Mai sect's violation of our ancestral teachings. We deserve it. However, that was the decision of our higher-ups. It has nothing to do with our disciples. They were only forced by their teacher's strict orders and had no choice but to do so. The Mai sect's leader, Gu Zuheng, cried out loudly, "Let these disciples go and this old man and the others will give their lives to you. We'll never resist, we'll be at your mercy. Lord Supreme Cloud, please be merciful and let these innocent disciples leave." Wang Changfeng's golden hook was already placed against his neck as he roared, "Supreme Cloud. Do you hear me? Just say the word and this old man will give his life to you." Yun Yang's faint voice was devoid of any emotion as he said faintly, "Heavens will reincarnate, who has the heavens ever spared?" That day dozens of Mai sect's ace cultivators entered the army and massacred Yutong's soldiers with their tyrannical martial strength. In the end, tens of thousands of people died in your hands, directly or indirectly. The fall of the Fortress of Resilience is largely due to your intervention. Millions of brothers are watching me. Yun Yang said faintly, "Their heroic souls aren't far away, they're still hovering above Tiantang City. I can feel their gazes clearly on my back. They're urging me to avenge them." With a flash of gray, Yun Yang's gaze shot out from the thick fog like 2 bolts of lightning. At this moment, at this very day, there are so many debts of blood and life. How can the lives of the few of you be able to bear it? Can you? Even if the entire Mai sect is annihilated, it's still not enough. It's far from enough. Yun Yang said faintly, "I've said it just now. Skilled cultivators are strictly forbidden from interfering with the wars of the continent's empires. This has been Tianshan continent's iron law since the beginning of time. If you're involved, the karma must be severed. To think that Yutong has been waging war on the battlefield for so many years and the sects have never participated. You've disobeyed your ancestors' teachings and joined in, becoming Yutong's enemy. If you can still leave your legacy in the end, won't it make more people feel lucky?" "My sect." Yun Yang hollered, "Today it shall be annihilated." Wang Changfeng and Gu Zuheng guffawed, "My sect, my sect?" Both of them looked at each other with tears in their eyes, speechless. Their words had come to an end. There was really no need to continue. Supreme Cloud's determination was as unshakable as a towering mountain. Chapter 692. Ancestral Teaching. Ancestral Teaching. Wang Changfeng shrieked, "How can I, Wang Changfeng, face the Mai sect's ancestors in the underworld?" Suddenly, he charged towards Yun Yang and roared, "Supreme Cloud, this old man hands this life of mine to you. If you have the guts, come with me." Before his words echoed in the air, he charged into the clouds and self-destructed. With a loud boom, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Wang Changfeng had turned into a cloud of blood mist. He was dead, his body and soul destroyed. After the explosion, a cloud of mist formed in the wind. Yun Yang's saber glinted with a crimson gleam once more. "Is there anyone else who wants to take me away? Why not try? It'll save me a lot of trouble." Gu Zuheng heaved a long sigh and committed suicide, following in Wang Changfeng's footsteps. About the time it took to brew 2 cups of tea had passed. A total of 136 people from the Mai sect had perished. The sect had been annihilated with no survivors left. Blood dyed the ground red, converging into rivers of blood. Yun Yang and the 10 Yama kings left quietly, leaving a mess on the ground that was left uncleaned. A stone tablet stood there majestically. 136 people from the Mai sect have been slain here. The Mai sect has disobeyed the ancestral teaching and intervened in the war between 2 empires. Yutong's warriors hate them. Yutong's Supreme Cloud has struck today to annihilate their sect and their people. Those who offend Yutong shall be punished no matter how far away they are. There were some introductions at the bottom. detailing the beginning and end of the incident clearly. It was signed, Yutong's Supreme Cloud has erected this tablet to pay tribute to the loyal souls, to pacify the people, to warn the world, to warn the martial world. This line of inscription was filled with murderous intent. His tone was even more arrogant. However, everyone who saw this stone tablet did not think that it was arrogant at all. It was as if everything that had happened was a matter of course. Anyone who saw this stone tablet couldn't help but be shocked. The stone tablet stood tall, facing the morning sun. The stench of blood that lingered for dozens of miles, lingering for a long time. Not long after, passers-by finally passed by. When they saw the inscription on the stone tablet, their hearts raced and their hair stood on end. Then thunderous cheers followed, filled with endless relief. It's Lord Supreme Cloud. This is Lord Supreme Cloud avenging our soldiers. All hail Lord Supreme Cloud. With Lord Supreme Cloud here, let's see who in this world dares to look Yutong in the eye. In Tiantang City. Following Yun Xiaoyao's command, the military and the government worked together to seal off the entire east side of the city. This time, the strength of the blockade was unprecedentedly high. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It wasn't just a simple action, but all the civilians who could be moved out of the eastern part of the city. The Empire of Yutong has decreed that the Emperor has no intention of interfering in the martial world's affairs, but the martial world strictly forbids the slaughter of Yutong's people. The east side of the city was temporarily unguarded. Only the east side of the city, and only for 7 days. 7 days later, martial artists who have entered Yutong are to leave on their own. Those who stay beyond the time limit will be considered to have violated Yutong's laws and will be punished severely. Within this unique period of time, Yutong officials will collect the bodies of those martial artists who have unfortunately passed away and send their remains back to their homes, returning them to their roots. As long as there are valuables, you must not touch them. If there are any violators, Yutong shall hunt them down with all its might without mercy. The officials issued an official statement, clearly expressing Yutong's imperial court's attitude. Fight all you want, we know we can't stop you. We might as well designate a place for you to play in the east side of the city. We've actually made rules to allow all of you to have fun. This is already giving you face. Under such circumstances, if the rules were to be broken, there would be no room for discussion and no one would be able to play anymore. We respect you all, so we'll set aside a place for you. If you all respect us as well, we'll take care of the aftermath no matter who dies. When you die, your belongings will be sent to your home as well. However, if you don't respect us, once the edict was announced, the martial artists who had entered Tiantang City seemed to scoff at it on the surface, but in the midst of battle they had all abated, whether intentionally or not. Even those who had always been mysterious still chose to wear things that represented their identity and origins on their bodies. They were all sensible people. They thought that they were the chosen ones, the lucky ones, the ones who obtained the dragon hide secret tome this time. With so many pinnacle experts gathered here, accidents could easily happen. No matter how high their cultivation base was, there was no guarantee that no accidents would happen. Since Yutong's officials had promised to take care of the aftermath, they would definitely do it. This was much more reliable than the usual martial world promises. After all, no one could guarantee that they would not lose their lives here. However, since the officials had made such a promise, they would definitely do it. If they could not do it, or even if they did not do it properly and caused others to criticize them, it would mean that the promise to the world's heroes had failed. It would be a severe blow to Yutong's official reputation. Of course, the assassins were unwilling. Were they not pushing them to the edge of a cliff by doing so? What would they do if the civilians were to be moved out? Therefore, they were doing everything they could to stop Yutong's officials from moving. However, all the martial artists had seized this opportunity as well. If you want to stop the migration, of course you have to show yourselves. Then we'll follow the migrating army. If you come out to stop us, we'll set up a trap to kill you. Yutong's official experts, led by Yun Xiaoyao, were here as well. If the assassins appeared to stop the migration, they would be attacked by both Yutong's officials and the martial world's experts. After more than a dozen clashes, the assassins suffered heavy losses and finally gave up on the plan. Yutong's officials followed the rules as well. If you don't stop the migration, we won't do anything. As a result, the assassins actually felt the pressure on them lighten considerably. After all, Yutong's officials were the local tyrants. They were all too familiar with the terrain. If the assassins did not move, the martial world's people would not move either. You have to conserve your energy, we have to wait for more people to come as well. Secretly, there were quite a number of people who were guiding the martial world's actions. Everyone felt that it was extremely reasonable. No matter what, this dragon hide treasure map must not be left in the assassins' hands. They're too powerful. Once they break out, they won't be able to get it back. Therefore, we have to work together and annihilate the assassins first. Snatching the treasure map is the best plan. Once we snatch it in the future, we'll just do what we can. Everyone felt that it was all very reasonable. Therefore, Yun Xiaoyao would send people in to collect the corpses every once in a while. All the members were ordinary soldiers. A few thousand of them went in at once to search for the corpses along the way. The countless ace cultivators in the entire eastern district turned a blind eye to them, as if they did not see them. No one even laid a finger on these ordinary soldiers. Even when they greeted them occasionally, it was done out of goodwill. Those who were rich would even give some money to express their gratitude. The underlying meaning was, "Brother, if you find me lying here one day, please put in more effort on account of the money I've given you today. Take care of those broken arms and legs for your brother." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.